Missionaries of Charity home, hidden away on a peaceful suburban lane, and enter it warily. In its sister branch in Mumbai, Stephanie's former orphanage that we'd visited before our trip to Amravati, her search for her birth mother hadn't exactly been encouraged. Instead, she was urged not to disrupt her birth mother's life, a position that upset Stephanie greatly. But out here in the provinces, once the sensitivity of our visit is understood by Sister Rosine, who's in charge, we are immediately treated to tea and biscuits, served with lashings of sympathy by a small group of nuns. Although we uncover no new information about Stephanie's past, it's clear she is deeply affected by the nuns' kindness. She listens hungrily as Sister Rosine, who began work at the orphanage from the mid-1980s onwards, unfortunately missing Stephanie by 1 year, describes those times when there were so many unwed teenage mothers, mostly students brought in by their worried families, that up to 4 babies could be admitted daily. And then, something unexpected happens. In that free flow of recollections, we inadvertently learn that contrary to what Stephanie's always thought, she was not actually born here, in this former orphanage, but in a local maternity hospital, where incredibly the same paediatric doctor might still be working. It's a lead we can't ignore. 1 hour later, and we have tracked down Dr. Hemant Murke, a calm, composed man, who informs Stephanie that he would almost certainly have looked after her for the first few weeks of her life. It's an unforgettable encounter for everyone present. In front of my eyes, a cloud seems to lift intangibly from her as she breaks into a tearful smile of happiness at the man opposite. Stephanie's pilgrimage to a place called Amravati has proven more healing than she could ever have imagined. It's yielded real context to pour into all those painful gaps in her history, along with a precious image of being cared for as a baby, perhaps even held in this doctor's arms to counter the cruelty of those early labels. Above all, her city welcomed Stephanie home.
Tanya Datta on finding some closure in India. That's all for this edition of the programme. Thank you for listening. I'm Pascal Harter. The producer was Polly Hope. And we'll be back next weekend for more stories of the lives behind the global headlines. So do join us again then, here on the BBC World Service.
That was the
Good morning, Manitoba. I'm Marcy Marcusa. This is Information Radio. We're live in downtown Winnipeg on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app and YouTube this morning. Thanks for joining us. We're on air till 8:37 AM with your morning show after a very hot weekend and a pretty windy day yesterday in Winnipeg and across most of the province. Let's say good morning to the team. Corey Funk is back directing the show and covering the commute. Abby Adeyemi behind the controls, our senior tech. And Corey's going to be covering weather for Abby today on the air. And there's Mr. Darren Marash. Darren is our producer of our YouTube stream. If you're watching there, thank you for joining us. We do have, by the way, a yellow level heat warning, and that continues for areas around the Pond, Norway House, Lynn Lake, Thompson, Flin Flon, and Cranberry Portage. And that's daytime highs near 30 expected again today. And of course, with Norway House, we've been watching fire there. So wish that I had rain in the forecast for you, but it's looking pretty hot. Let's go to Heather Wells for news stories that are developing this hour. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, at least 12 people have lost their lives so far this year in fires in Winnipeg. Fire Paramedic Service Deputy Chief Scott Wilkinson says criminal activity is behind some of the fires, but he says in many cases substance abuse or poverty increase the likelihood of injuries or death, and he says those issues need to be addressed. Manitoba's ramping up efforts to control measles by holding a town hall on Wednesday in the Southern Health Region. Manitoba has recorded more than 600 measles cases so far in 2026. I'll be back with more Manitoba news coming up at 6:30.
All right. Thanks, Heather.
Thank you.
The actual daytime high for Winnipeg, by the way, today is 28 degrees. We do have a 30% chance we'll see some rain this afternoon, so just slight, and winds will be once again gusting south 30 to 50 in Winnipeg. Well, on the program today, in less than an hour, Agape Table will serve the first food out of their new building on Furby today. We'll hear how preparation operations are going, so stay tuned for that. Also, an hour ago, we just got Food Banks Canada's new report across this country, and it shows, unfortunately, that 1 in 5 food bank clients in Canada are employed but still going hungry. So we're going to hear more about that report. That's coming up with more coverage later in the show today. We'll look at how Manitoba fares. And the rise of AI is changing how schools assess students. And so we're going to talk more about that. Are they looking more at grades or the process of how they get something done?
On cue. Please welcome to the stage, Vincenzo Alabaluzzi.
Have you heard comedians talk about how this current political moment we're in is bad for comedy? The Irish comedian Vittorio Angelone is here, and he wants to challenge that whole premise. He'll tell you whether or not he thinks comedians should even use their platforms to discuss major world events.
Q with Tom Power. This morning at 10:30 in Newfoundland. And on CBC Listen, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is World Report. Good morning, I'm Martina Fitzgerald. President Donald Trump says Iran wants to make a deal and it will be good for the USA. Trump taking to social media this morning to post his optimism on how negotiations are unfolding between the two countries. But several strikes over the weekend tell a different story. The CBC's Chris Reyes joins me now from Washington. Chris, how are these recent strikes affecting negotiations?
Well, Martina, President Trump seemed to be saying to his critics and the world that he will not be rushed on these negotiations. And he pointed a finger at Democrats and what he called unpatriotic Republicans, blaming them for getting in the way. He then said, sit back and relax. It will all work out well in the end. It always does. Now, this statement comes as the weekend passed with no call from the president on whether there will be an extension of the ceasefire between the U.S. and Iran and the exchanging of fire between the two countries. U.S. Central Command shared more detail late last night, calling the strikes on Iranian sites self-defense, claiming that Iranian drones were threatening ships and other U.S. assets. And Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard also says this morning that it targeted an airbase used by the U.S. as a response.
Chris, what are we hearing from Tehran?
Well, first, Tehran is calling those U.S. strikes over the weekend a violation of the ceasefire, countering that U.S. narrative that it was self-defense. Iran's foreign minister is describing the conditions of negotiations with the U.S. as one full of mistrust and severe suspicion. He also insisted that a ceasefire in Lebanon is an essential condition for any deal that would end the war. He also seemed to be saying that these negotiations have not advanced very far. The minister said details over nuclear matters have yet to be discussed. The tone on both sides clearly very tense.
The CBC's Chris Reyes in Washington. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Israel's military is stepping up attacks on southern Lebanon. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says the IDF has been instructed to strike what he calls terrorist targets in Beirut. Israel considers several southern regions in Lebanon's capital to be Hezbollah strongholds. Netanyahu says the strikes are in response to attacks on Israeli civilians. He says Israel will continue to expand its ground operations in southern Lebanon as it moves to eliminate Hezbollah infrastructure. Both Israel and Hezbollah accuse each other of violating a U.S.-brokered ceasefire that was reached in April. Alberta is working to finalize plans for a new oil pipeline to the BC coast. CBC News has obtained documents with details about the project. They were used in consultations with local communities, and they give a glimpse into the potential routes the province has in mind. Here is business reporter Kyle Bax with the exclusive.
There's a lot of mountains in the way. It's difficult country.
The Alberta government is considering 4 different routes for a new oil pipeline to the west coast. Documents obtained by CBC News show 3 of the routes on a map through northern BC. For Grant Sprague, a former deputy energy minister in Alberta, he sees many challenges from tough terrain to protected areas and major waterways home to salmon.
I see as I look at those maps, either you're dealing with the Nass River or you're dealing with the Skeena, both really important rivers.
The documents are labeled confidential and were used by the Alberta government as part of consultation with some leaders in northern BC this spring. One of the routes is nearly identical to Enbridge's former Northern Gateway pipeline proposal. The northern routes seem to go through communities that are more supportive of a pipeline, says Heather Exner-Perot. She's a special advisor on energy to the Business Council of Canada.
This is a strategic route for political reasons, not for economic reasons. So it will be a bit more expensive, but they must expect that will save them time and money on the back end.
The Alberta government is also exploring the idea of a fourth route through southern BC. Premier Danielle Smith wants to break ground next year, which Sprague says will be difficult.
I'd say that it's wildly ambitious.
The Alberta government plans to submit the proposal to the Federal Major Projects Office this month. Kyle Bax, CBC News, Calgary.
This morning, we're waiting for a possible CUSMA update from the Trump administration. U.S. Trade Representative Jamieson Greer has said he planned to update Congress on talks today. He signaled his intention in April, adding issues with Canada remain unresolved. But
the Canadians, we have some issues with them that haven't been resolved yet. I don't want to get ahead of myself because I have to tell Congress on June 1st what we're going to do. And then a month later, I tell the Canadians and Mexicans what I told Congress a month before. So I think that we aren't probably going to be able to resolve all issues by July 1st. But I think we are on track to resolve many of them and to move as quickly as we can.
Greer's office, though, did not respond to CBC News when asked if that update was happening. Dominic LeBlanc, the minister responsible for Canada-U.S. trade, would only say that Canada is preparing for a joint review of the trade deal. Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre wants a debate on affordability today in the House of Commons. He says it would give the Prime Minister a chance to inform Canadians about his economic plans. New data from Statistics Canada shows the economy has contracted for 2 consecutive annualized quarters, signaling a technical recession. The Liberal government has already dismissed Poilievre's request. An admirer of Donald Trump is making gains in Colombia's presidential election. Abelardo de la Espriella won the first round and surprised analysts with 43% of the votes. Next, he'll face a left-wing candidate in a runoff later this month. Manuel Rueda has more on the contentious election.
Abelardo de la Espriella celebrated his victory, calling on Colombians to defeat what he terms communism. One of his targets is the country's president, Gustavo Petro, who is term limited and not running in the election. You and your allies will not steal our democracy, he says. De la Espriella entered politics only a year ago when he launched his presidential campaign. The populist candidate has pledged to end the government's peace negotiations with Colombia's rebel groups and build 10 mega prisons to house criminals who surrender to authorities. His challenger in the runoff is Iván Cepeda, a longtime senator aligned with President Petro's left-wing movement. Cepeda has promised to expand social programs, including subsidies for farmers. Speaking to supporters after the vote, Cepeda urged Colombians who backed other candidates to vote for him in the second round. Join us and be on the right side of history, he said. The political climate in Colombia has become increasingly polarized, says political analyst Sergio Guzman.
The candidates both are dug in to their base and their narrative.
About 15% of the voters supported neither of the top 2 contenders. Their votes could be crucial in the final round. Manuel Rueda for CBC News, Bogotá.
Nearly 300 workers with Canadian Pacific Kansas City are off the job. Their 72-hour strike notice expired Sunday morning without a deal. The workers maintain railway signaling and communication systems from Vancouver to Montreal. The union says the railway has failed to engage on issues affecting retention, compensation, and work-life balance. CPKC says it has offered wage and benefit increases consistent with its other collective agreements and says it has contingency plans to keep operations running. One of the world's most popular streaming series is still celebrating a big weekend. The steamy Heated Rivalry dominated the Canadian Screen Awards, capping off a monumental year for homegrown content. Senior entertainment reporter Griffin Yeager has details.
It was Heated Rivalry's night at the Canadian Screen Awards, winning 16 trophies and breaking a CSA record, capping off a huge run for the Canadian hockey love story turned worldwide hit. The show's star Hudson Williams took home Best Lead Performer in a Drama and shouted out to his American co-star.
To the honorary Canadian Connor Story, I share this award with you.
North of North went in as the top nominee and left with 9 awards, including Best Comedy Series and Best Lead Performer for Anna Lam.
Say it 1,000 times again, being part of this project is like the greatest joy of my career.
The show, hosted by Andrew Fung, had some other standout moments too. Eugene Levy surprised fans with a heartfelt tribute to the late Catherine O'Hara.
It was who she was as a person that endeared her to millions.
Nirvana, the band, the show, the movie took home Best Picture. Its producers were shocked and excited.
It's been crazy to see the support we've gotten within this country, worldwide.
And Mike Myers was honored with the Academy Icon Award.
Canada, I don't know what to say, dude. I'd literally be nothing without you.
A night of Canadian moments and a celebration of their global appeal. Griffin Yeager, CBC News, Toronto.
That is the latest national and international news from World Report. I'm Martina Fitzgerald. This is CBC News.
Good morning, Manitoba, and hello, Winnipeg. I'm Marcy Marcusa. This is Information Radio, and we're live in our CBC studios in downtown Winnipeg on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app and on YouTube. Thanks for joining us wherever you are this morning. Well, the Food Bank's report card in Canada just came out. And it grades across this country how people are doing with food security and systems organizations. It also looks at provinces. Manitoba was one of only 2 provinces to improve its overall grade, so to speak. But there's a lot of recommendations in here about how we can do better for folks. So we're going to hear more about that as we dig into the report a little bit. Also, in less than an hour, Agape Table locally is serving the first food out of their new building on Furby today. They start at 7 o'clock. We'll hear how preparations are going so far, so stay tuned for that. And then a little bit later, AI in schools, making students and teachers rethink their approach. We're going to talk to an expert about how to understand how schools are responding. And while we've done a lot of interviews about this, this one's interesting in a different way because they're looking at schools and how they assess students and whether or not AI is shifting the focus from the end product, like how you do, what your grade is, so to speak, speaking of grades, to the process. How did you do with the process of understanding something? So what's AI's role in that? Stay tuned. That's all coming up. Right now, let's go to Heather Welsh. She's live in our news center with other headlines.
Good morning. Well, a national pro-choice group has taken up the cause of a 94-year-old Steinbach area woman who wants to die. Marion Penner is bedridden, suffering several ailments. She was denied medical assistance in dying, or MAID, earlier this year, and now without any assistance from MAID, she refuses to take her medications, trying to hasten her own death. Joyce Arthur at Abortion Rights Coalition of Canada says Manitoba's MAID laws restrict patients' right to care. We'll hear more from her. And the Union for Winnipeg Firefighters says inaction from the city is driving up the number of fatal fires. At least 12 people have died in blazes in Winnipeg so far this year. I'll be back with more Manitoba news at 6:30.
All right. Thank you, Heather.
Thank you.
Well, this heat is not helping, of course. We are going to break by midweek, but Abby's here with our... Corey's here with our forecast. See, that's just muscle memory looking at Abby. You're covering the weather today too, Corey. What's up?
Yes, we get like down south here, a little bit of a slight break maybe from that heat. We're talking about highs more in the high 20s, mid 20s. Winnipeg here, for example, we're sitting at 16 right now at the Forks, but with a mix of sun and cloud today, our high today is going to be 28, which feels like a strange relief compared to this weekend, but it still means a pretty warm day ahead for us here. There's also a slight risk of thunderstorms this afternoon with about a 30% chance of rain as well. Brandon, you're sitting at 17 right now. You can expect a few showers ending late this afternoon, and then mainly cloudy. Also risk of a thunderstorm for you later today. Up north, though, there is a yellow heat warning still in effect for much of the north and central Manitoba. We're talking about the Pas, Norway House, Lynn Lake, Thompson, Flin Flon. We're talking about highs in the low 30s or so. Thompson, right now, you're at 17, but you're going to hit 30 today. That is what's going on in the weather right now. Right now, Winnipeg, we're sitting at 16. As for your commute, been pretty quiet so far. Haven't heard of any major issues out there, but if you're walking, you're biking, you're driving, you see some new construction you're curious about, you can give me a call on the CBC commuter line. That number, 204-788-3093.
Current temps around the province. Brandon is 17, Winnipeg sitting at 16, and Thompson sitting at 16 as well. Well, as I alluded to, there's a couple things developing in the area that we're about to talk about, which is hunger and need. As you've been hearing, Canada's Food Bank report just came out. It says that 1 in 5 food bank clients in this country are employed, but they're still going hungry. Today is also the day, as I mentioned, that a new space is going to open to help feed people in Manitoba. Agape Table actually opened their new building earlier this month, but in an hour, they are ready to start serving the first meals at that new location. The nonprofit organization had been feeding people out of rented spaces in local churches, but at 7 o'clock, they're going to start serving out of 364 Furby Street here in the West End, which is their permanent spot. Erin Scarf is the volunteer coordinator over at Agape Table and up early and here to talk to us ahead of the meal. Good morning.
Good morning. How you guys doing?
Good. What's the mood like over there? Now under an hour to go.
Yeah, we're all pretty excited to be in our new digs. We're at 350 Furby, and we're just two addresses closer to Portage than our current location, which was at the Wave. So we're very excited to have our own space. Nice.
Okay, thanks for correcting that for us. I got that wrong.
No
so 350 Furby is where you guys are. How many people are you expecting this morning?
Well, you know what? If last week was any indication, especially with kind of the warmer weather and maybe a little bit more traffic, we like last Monday, a week ago, we served just over 1,000 meals. And I'm sure that, we're going to see anywhere from 800 to 1,000 meals again today. We're serving anywhere from, 4,000 to almost 5,000 meals every week here at Agape Table. So the need is very high, and we do our best to meet our guests wherever we can.
I know this is about food, but for a moment, if I could just dip into what you mentioned about how hot it's been. What have you been hearing from clients about how they've been, dealing with that? If they're, especially for those of your clients that are homeless, not all will be, but some will be.
For sure. So, for you and I, it's pretty easy if we do need a drink, we can just go, kind of satiate that need. But a lot of our guests, they don't have access to water all the time. So we reached out to the city a few years ago about getting temporary water stations set up. And this is the third year in a row that the water stations have been set up, and they actually just set it up last week. So this weekend, there's, our guests have access to clean drinking water. And it's located just outside our front doors, kind of in between us and the University of Winnipeg.
In terms of this report that I just mentioned, Erin, one of the headlines, as I said, is that 1 in 5 food bank clients in Canada is employed, but still in need of food, still going hungry. How does that resonate with the clients you serve at Agape, in so much as you would know, because you're not going to talk to each and every person, but I'm just wondering.
Yeah, so a lot of our guests have really changed. Like our meal program, our breakfast program, which runs Monday to Friday, 7 a.m. till 11 a.m. That's going to be, a lot of the unhoused and, individuals that are kind of living at the street level. For our food banks program, 100% what you said is correct. We're seeing a lot more families and a lot more individuals that are having to make a decision between either paying their rent or paying their food. And, I think you need a place to live. So a lot of our participants that have signed up for the food banks are certainly in that category. And it hasn't slowed down. If anything, we're seeing more and more using food banks. And for Agape Table side, we've actually added, and we've had to add in, and we have the ability to as well, like additional walk-ins. So if somebody's really in need of food that day, which runs on Tuesdays for Agape Table, we actually add in additional walk-ins where an individual is able to call 204-786-2370, either talk to myself, Ashley, or Darren, and we're able to get them set up.
786-2370, did I get that right?
That's right.
Okay. We'll later dig into more of this when we have a deeper look at the report. I just want to let listeners know Manitoba was only one of 2 provinces that actually slightly improved our report card grade for food banks across the country, according to this report. We went from a D- in 2024 to a C-. So, but one of the policy recommendations was to enhance the rent assist program and to develop a comprehensive food security strategy. And then the last one was increase in index employment and income assistance rates. So those were the 3 areas to look at. I heard you responding. Do you want to weigh in? You don't have to.
You know what? I think Agape Table does a pretty good job of being apolitical, and a lot of what's happening kind of on the political landscape, we do our best to stay out of it.
Yeah.
We just focus on food security and meeting anybody, any Winnipegger, any Manitoban that is that is in need. Agape Table meets them where they're at, and we're very proud of our ability to do that.
Well, later on, we're going to talk to Harvest Manitoba. We're going to have a deeper look at the stats. So back to your opening. You're like, what are you, 41 minutes away now? What's on the menu for the very first meal out of the new location?
I have yet to kind of go inside. I was actually doing a pickup from one of our local bakeries here in Winnipeg, and I actually just kind of pulled up. So I'm going to go in and start greeting the volunteers. I know that our cook, Natasha, has been here since 5 a.m., and as I drove around the front of the building, a bunch of our volunteers were just arriving as well. So things are moving along pretty good. I know that there'll be 100% there'll be the soup and sandwich and things like that. And we're just super excited and super thankful to all Winnipeggers, all Manitobans, Canadians, really, that helped make this project possible. And we're finally here after so many years. So it's our first time ever Agape Table has our own home, and we're very, very thankful to the Wave and very thankful to everyone else who made Agape Table possible. But we're finally here today. So
we've got a picture of the exterior of the building with the name on the building permanently. That must feel amazing. Just last, Aaron, what kind of things will you be able to do at the new building? Remind us that you weren't able to do before, or maybe that you were doing, but you were always worried, the rug could be pulled out from under us.
Right. So the biggest thing is we have full autonomy on how we want to operate, and we're not going to be bound by limitations of having a landlord. Not that the Wave they were fantastic to us, but we really want to make sure that any need that we're able to help with our guests, we're able to get there without too much barriers. And the big one is that we foresee as kind of weekends. Right now, we're not open on weekends right now, just because we're getting kind of our feet out from under us, but certainly by midsummer, kind of late summer, we'll hopefully be operating a weekend program.
Yep.
And really able to bridge that gap, properly to our guests, and really at the end of the day, it's just we have enough freedom where anything that we need to change to improve the lives of our guests, we will do our best to meet that, and we're on the right track.
And just last briefly, how many meals will you serve? Do you do one big one a day, or are you multiple seatings today?
So, just to get up, traditionally Agape Table has done our breakfast program, and that's Monday to Friday, 7 a.m. to 11 a.m. We are 100% going to continue that. And if the future dictates that we're able to offer a different meal program later in the day, we can certainly visit that. But serving 1,000 meals in a 4-hour time period is it's quite a feat, and we want to focus on that and do our best for that. So if we're able to increase that, we'll look at it. But right now we really do what we're doing now fantastically, and we're going to keep on doing that.
All right, Aaron, enjoy today once the lineups start, and congratulations to you and the volunteers that work at Agape.
Thanks so much. Anybody that wants to reach out, please reach out to myself at aaron@agapetable.ca or visit our website, agapetable.ca. Thanks so much for your time.
All right, take care. Have a good morning.
You do, bye now.
Aaron Scarf is a volunteer coordinator with Agape Table. Their new location is 350 in the West End, 350 Furby Street. And at 7 o'clock, they're opening their doors for the very first time to serve meals out of their new building, which opened earlier this month. 6:23 a.m. is the time right now. I'm Marcy Marcusa. This is Information Radio. You're on CBC. Another hot day ahead. We do have a chance of a thunderstorm this afternoon, a 30% chance of that. And it's going to be windy again today in the city. It's 16. We have a heat level warning, a yellow level heat level warning for the north, the Paw, Norway House, Lynn, Thompson, Flin Flon. We're talking daytime highs expected around 30 degrees today. Well, next in the show, high schoolers across Canada are gearing up for exam season, and the age of AI has administrators rethinking how students should be assessed. So experts say they're increasingly focusing on the process of learning, the process of completing an assignment, rather than grading solely on the outcome, the finished product. To talk about it, Carrie Wilson is with us, District Vice Principal of Innovation and Technology over at for West Vancouver Schools. So we've reached her in BC. Good morning.
Good morning.
So this is interesting. What are you seeing from students in terms of AI usage, first of all, when it comes to assessments?
So from students, it really depends on the age of the student and their access to AI tools. But certainly, given an opportunity, students will turn to AI to help them and in some cases do the work for them. So what that's done is really put educators in a position where we need to rethink what we're assigning and how we're assigning it so that students don't just automatically turn to AI. At the same time, we're trying to teach students how AI can be used to support their learning rather than doing the learning for them.
So can you give us a concrete example? Because I think that, that seems like an impossible task.
Some days it feels like it. So if we take something like an essay, which is sort of that time-trusted assignment that teachers will give students, rather than just saying, here's the assignment, off you go, do the work and bring it back and hand it in, which is somewhat simplified. Teachers instead are looking at breaking the essay down into a variety of steps and assessing each step as they go, rather than putting the emphasis on that finished final essay. When you put all of the pressure on that final product, it makes it more likely that a student's going to turn to something like AI. Whereas when you break it down into smaller parts and maybe allow the student to use AI to support some of those parts, then you assess each of those parts, you're going to get a better idea of what the student actually knows, and it's less likely, that they will use artificial intelligence to complete the assignment.
And would the teacher actually be not grading each of those parts of the process, but like checking in with the student along the way? Like, would there be a deadline for research and a deadline for first draft, so to speak?
Yeah, and in some cases, the teacher might actually assess. So if the first step of the assignment of the essay is to brainstorm, and you do that on paper and pencil in class, and you're getting all your ideas down, the student is saying, okay, these are my thoughts, here's my evidence, here's what I want to focus on when I write. The teacher might very well mark that because it gives them a good initial understanding of where the student is. Then the student might go through a step where they do peer assessment, where another student in the class looks over what they've done so far and gives them some feedback. They might go through a step where the AI tool gives them some feedback. So the teacher has created a custom AI tool for the student to put their work into and then get specific feedback returned. And the teacher, depending what tool they've used, can see the interaction the students had with the AI, which gives the teacher an idea of sort of how the student is doing. Then eventually you get to that final product that's handed in. And rather than what traditionally has been done, where the teacher marks the product and gives it back to the student with a mark, they might sit down with the student and say, look, I've read your essay. You made some really interesting points. Can you tell me about this point? What do you know about it? What are you thinking? And in that way, if the student has used AI to complete the work, they're going to have a harder time defending their thesis and talking about what they've done. Whereas if they've actually gone through the steps and learned everything, they'll have they'll be much more readily able to talk about what they've done. And then that gives a teacher yet another layer to assess.
Improving the learning, so to speak, in a way.
Yes, yeah. Exactly.
So what's the reaction from students and teachers been like to the approach where you work, like at the region where you work?
It's been pretty good, pretty positive. I think students appreciate the fact that teachers are concerned about students keeping their ability to critically think and to learn. And so students appreciate when teachers give them a way to break the assignment down and maybe use AI for a bit of it, but still show what they know. I think for teachers, it's been a big learning curve because this is all new for them. And they really have been wanting support and help. And so we've been trying to get together in our district a number of times during the year and go through these things and have professional development sessions for teachers and give them opportunities to talk to each other and look for best practice and things.
I just want to ask you on that point before you go this morning. In Manitoba, there was some discussion about, we heard some teachers telling CBC they wish there was a standardized approach to sort of AI in schools and more sessions to standardize it, because right now it's falling more to administrators. So some schools are, teachers might be supported in a completely different way. And then in other schools, teachers might be sort of wishing they had that. Is yours regional or is it provincial in terms of, the policy around use of AI in schools and the supports for teachers?
So in British Columbia, there has been some guidance from the province, but for the most part, it's districts. So in my district, we have 4 high schools and 14 elementary schools. And we have worked really hard as a district to provide teachers with those guidelines right from the beginning, 3 or 4 years ago, and give them tools to use that are built for the K-12 space, and really support their ability to move forward and their understanding as well as that of the students and the parents, frankly.
Got it. So here that would be a parallel to the divisional level in Manitoba.
Probably, yeah. Yes.
All right, Carrie, thank you very much for your time. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Carrie Wilson with us live via Zoom, District Principal of Innovation Technology at West Vancouver Schools, joined us this morning from BC. In the commute this morning, you should be, actually, we do have one thing. Corey's popping in. I was about to say you should be fine, but something's going on. What's going on?
Just got a call from Megan Ketchison, our reporter. She's out and about, and she actually saw that you can't actually turn right now from Maine onto Disraeli. There seems to be some sort of emergency crews blocking that off entirely, so you can't get from Maine to turn on to Disraeli right now. We're going to try to get more details on that, but just got off a phone call from her. And if you have details on that, if you're seeing anything, the impacts of that, or anything else out there, you can give me a call on the CBC commuter line. That number, 204-788-3093. All
right, thanks, Corey.
Thank you.
We're going to talk about the price of gas in our business news after your CBC News from Manitoba.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 6:30, it's 16 degrees. It is June, and the heat warning is over, but we are still well above seasonal. A high today of 28, windy as well. A Steinbach area woman denied medical assistance in dying, or MAID, is taking matters into her own hands. 94-year-old Marion Penner is bedridden. She's now trying to hasten her own death by refusing her medication. Denied MAID earlier this year, Penner was moved from her hometown of Steinbach to a facility more than 50 kilometers away. She's now on an 18-month waiting list for a palliative care bed and a complicated MAID appeal process. Penner says this is not how she wanted to die.
I just thought maybe this made more sense rather than working really hard at prolonging a life in the 90s. Just let nature do its thing, see what happens.
CBC reported in March, Manitobans are far more likely to be denied MAID eligibility than anywhere else in Canada. The Union for Winnipeg Firefighters says inaction from the city is driving up the number of fatal fires. At least 12 people have died in blazes so far this year. Adam Smithson at the United Firefighters of Winnipeg says the critical branch for fire prevention is understaffed. And crews on the ground, he says, are also stretched thin, delaying response times to fires. Smithson says the number of deaths weighs on the union.
These aren't just statistics on the page, right? Their lives lost in fire, their families awakened by unimaginable loss, and neighborhoods forced to grieve tragedies that could and should have been prevented.
The mayor's office says the firefighter service has seen one of the largest staffing increases of any city department. That's after 44 full-time positions were added over the last 2 years. Manitoba's ramping up its efforts to control measles by connecting with people in the hardest hit areas. The province is phoning around, inviting people to a Southern Health Region town hall on Wednesday. They can talk face-to-face with health officials and get information on vaccines. Health Minister Uzoma Asseguera says it is about direct outreach.
Getting people the information they need, allowing people to ask questions. Maybe some of those questions that they've been sitting with for a while, but just haven't known where to pose those questions and get information they can trust.
The province has also launched a billboard campaign in 4 major cities with the message, "Measles is on the rise in Manitoba. You can help stop it." Manitoba's recorded more than 600 measles cases so far this year. It's about 2/3 of all cases reported in Canada so far this year. There may be a CUSMA update today from the Trump administration. In April, U.S. Trade Representative Jamieson Greer had said he planned to update Congress June 1st.
The Canadians, we have some issues with them that haven't been resolved yet. I don't want to get ahead of myself because I have to tell Congress on June 1st what we're going to do. And then a month later, I tell the Canadians and Mexicans what I told Congress a month before. So I think that We aren't probably going to be able to resolve all issues by July 1st, but I think we are on track to resolve many of them and to move as quickly as we can.
Greer's office did not respond to CBC News when asked if that update was still happening or not. Ukraine's president says he has evidence Russia is training abducted Ukrainian children to hate their homeland. Volodymyr Zelensky says they're being trained to fight against their own country.
They taught these children to hate their native country, to hate native people. And Ukrainians, can you imagine such young Ukrainians, young boys, come to the battlefield and kill Ukrainians?
Zelensky says at least 20,000 children have been kidnapped and taken to Russia since the start of the war 4 years ago. You can hear the latest national and international news coming up on World Report at 7. Raising money for St. Boniface Museum through beading. About 100 beadwork artists took over the Franco-Manitoban Cultural Centre yesterday. Rayanne Gagne has been beading for a couple of years.
It's a sense of community for sure when you do beading with a group of other women or whoever else is doing beading with you. It's in a sense of accomplishment that you've created something beautiful from simple beads and thread.
The St. Boniface Museum has been closed to the public for renovations, and money raised through this beadathon goes to needed repairs. Thousands took to downtown Winnipeg over the weekend to eat and take in performances from different Asian cultures. The Taste of Asia Festival in Memorial Park. Kits Gardos with Jeepney Vibes was among dozens of vendors and was cooking up Filipino street food.
Feels like we're adding into the culture of Winnipeg itself. As of the moment, a lot of the food here is similar, but every new business adds a little something different.
This was the 4th year for the Taste of Asia Festival in Winnipeg. You can find more Manitoba news. All you have to do is head to cbc.ca/Manitoba.
All right. Thanks, Heather.
Thank you.
It was a nice weekend to head out to a festival. That heat always brings festival vibes. We'll get into the weather in a moment. First, though, we're starting with something developing in traffic this morning. Here's Corey Funk.
Right, northbound Israeli Freeway currently closed right now. Police say that it's due to a working fire on Argyle Street between 199 Argyle, around there. So they're actually asking commuters to find other routes right now. So you can't turn down Main Street. If you're going down Main heading north, you want to turn onto Israeli, you can't at all right now. So you got to find another route if you're heading that way towards Henderson there. As for that's the only issue I've heard on the commute so far. But if you have any updates on that or anything else you're seeing out there, you can give me a call on the CBC commuter line. That number 204-788-3093. Let's move to your weather right now. We're actually going to start up north where there's a yellow heat warning in effect for much of north and central Manitoba. We're talking about the Pas, Norway House, Lynn Lake, Thompson, Flin Flon. Highs around the 30s or low 30s today. Thompson, for example, you're sitting at 17 right now. You're heading for a high of 30. Wind becoming east 20 kilometers per hour this morning with a bit of a high UV index. So that's what's happening up north. Going to be quite warm today. So you head down south to Winnipeg. It is going to be a bit cooler, a bit of a reprieve, but not a big reprieve. We're looking at it for a high of 28 today. Right now, though, we are sitting at 16. So if you got something to do outside today, now's the time to do it before it does heat up. Heading out west right now, you're sitting at 15 right now in Brandon, actually experiencing some light rain right now, and you could expect that rain to end late. You might expect some showers into the afternoon today, and that's the case for much of southern Manitoba, including Winnipeg, and a chance of thunderstorms as well today into the afternoon. Dauphin, you're sitting at 14 right now, heading for a high of 28. And you also can expect maybe some thunderstorms today, about a 60% chance of showers throughout the afternoon. Gimli, you're sitting at 13 right now, heading for a high of 29 as well, with about a 30% chance of showers and maybe even an afternoon thunderstorm as well. But right now in Winnipeg, we're sitting at 16 at the Forks.
All right. Thanks very much, Corey.
Thank you.
Corey Funk covering weather and traffic for us this morning on Information Radio. This is CBC, your morning show on 89.3 FM. Thanks for being here. Well, Crystal Lee Ramlakan is with us via Zoom to cover what's happening in business news. Good morning.
Hi. Good morning, Marcy.
Well, let's start with the price at the pump. How are gas prices looking?
Well, gas prices have actually been easing. The average price per liter across the country right now is almost $1.69 according to CAA. So less than it's been in the last month or so, but obviously more than a year ago with the war in the Middle East. So yeah, prices have been falling though on optimism of a deal between the U.S. and Iran. But experts say it's anyone's guess whether the relief will last. The two sides have had encouraging talks before, but then the situation has changed quickly. But even if the war ends right now, it could be months until gas prices stay down steadily because fuel inventories have been depleted during the conflict. So experts say the supply of things like crude oil, gas, jet fuel, and most refined products is running so low, suppliers won't be able to dip into their inventory for much longer. So if we don't see a resolution soon, some say we could see some really high prices in July and August. Now, politics, supply chains, and consumer behavior all get reflected in gas prices. On the supply chain side, there are many vessels still stranded in the Middle East, putting pressure on prices. At the same time, North Americans tend to drive more during the warmer months when gas stations stock more expensive blends of summer fuel. Yet these days, it seems politics have the biggest impact on what prices consumers are presented with. I mean, sometimes a social media post by President Donald Trump can send prices through the roof, and it can be unpredictable when we see posts from him.
Yes, it can. And let's move to labor news. In a railway strike, what effect's that going to have?
Well, some workers with the Canadian Pacific Kansas City walked off the job yesterday morning after their union said talks with the company were at a standstill. But officials at one of Canada's major railways say a strike by the 300 signals workers is not expected to impact operations. So the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers says the main sticking points include wages, work-life balance, and worker retention. And CPKC says it has implemented contingency plans to maintain operations across Canada and that safe and efficient rail service continues. And Marcy, staying on labor, postal workers will soon learn whether they have a new tentative agreement more than 2 years into their labor strife. So the Canadian Union of Postal Workers is set to release its ballot results today. About 55,000 members began voting in April on a 5-year deal. And as we know, Canada Post and the union have long sparred over things like wages and structural changes to the postal service, with workers taking to the picket lines multiple times.
And finally, how'd the box office do over the weekend?
Well, Hollywood has been wondering whether young people would go back to the theaters after the pandemic. And skeptics have said theaters are, a relic for a generation raised on streaming. But this weekend, they did go out. So Backrooms, a psychological horror flick from a 20-year-old YouTube creator turned filmmaker, collected an astounding $82 million across North America in theaters. And roughly 86% of the audience was under 35 and almost half was under the age of 21. So Backrooms cost about $10 million to make, not including marketing, and it was marketed mostly with an inexpensive online campaign. And so Backrooms was #1 at the box office, making its director, Kane Parsons, the youngest filmmaker in Hollywood history to achieve that ranking. So the previous record holder was Josh Trank, who was 27, with his movie Chronicle, which topped the box office back in 2012. So the colossal turnout was the biggest debut for an A24 film in the studio's 14-year history. And Obsession, a comedy horror mashup, has also sold about $105 million in tickets since its release May 15th. And about 78% of its opening weekend audience was also under 35. And Obsession also comes from a first-time filmmaker, Curry Barker, who also honed his skills on YouTube rather than inside the Hollywood ecosystem. And Obsession only cost $750,000 $100,000 to make.
Well, it goes to show now that that's an interesting pairing, right? Because it's like you start online now with a YouTube maker that has the following and pumps everything up. And then will that translate to moving people into the theater once they offer something there? And this is a test case that shows, at least in this case, was wildly successful. Or that people want to be, or maybe I was just going to add that people want to be together when they're watching something scary.
Maybe that's a good point too. You want to just be able to cuddle up to someone, hide under your jacket together. But you know what? YouTube makers, they are so aware of like what works, what gets viewers and eyeballs, right? They really know how to make content that attracts viewers. So maybe they're doing that for the movies as well.
All right, Crystalie, thank you. We'll talk to you tomorrow.
Okay, thanks, Marcy.
Crystalie Ramlichan with our CBC Business News. Well, over the weekend on CBC Radio, people huddle their voices together for cross-country checkup. Let's dip into what was discussed this weekend. Canada's former Environment Minister says he can do more to fight climate change outside of the federal government. So Stephen Guilbeault announced he's leaving politics. That happened last week. He said his government was, quote, backsliding on climate. This is a recent Angus Reid poll shows more Canadians think the economy should be the focus of the country's energy policy. So this weekend, CBC's cross-country checkup asked people, what's more important right now to you, the climate or the economy? Here's what some callers shared with host Ian Hannamansing.
Canada's contribution to global CO2 emissions are less than 1.5%. And, 10 years of Trudeau's climate policies had a marginal at best impact on Canada's emissions and essentially zero impact on the world's emissions. What we should have been doing is promoting nuclear energy, promoting alternative energy development, improving the infrastructure for the electrical grid, doing things which would promote industry, promote jobs, boost the economy, and more importantly, improve the direction we're heading for climate change.
We've got to deal with climate. When the accumulation of 100-year or 500-year events starts accumulating at 20 years, then you've got to know that something is wrong. Yeah, our little town, the water flows from another lake that's higher than us, and it flooded the streets, actually, of Mindemoya to about a foot of water in most places, sometimes more. And that wasn't just my town. That was like all over Manitoulin. There were issues with water. And everything melted all at once, and we got a flood.
I'm more interested in knowing what the other big countries like China, India, the United States and Russia, they have a much higher population than we do. But when you talk to the average Canadian, we feel like we're the poster child for climate change. And people are getting to the point where they can't afford right now to pay for climate change. They've got to put food on the table. They've got to put rent on the table. They've got to pay their taxes. We're thinking, what are these other big countries doing? Let's somebody stand up and tell us what their plans are so it makes sense to us. Right now, we feel like, why are we doing this when nobody else seems to be doing it?
I voted partially for Mark Carney because, of course, the whole situation with the U.S., but a large reason was because as a person who knows economies, world economies, and he said to leaders of the world, if we don't fight climate change, we don't have good economies. The two go hand in hand. Yet here we are in Canada right now, and he's destroying every protection in our country to mitigate climate change.
So those are some of the callers to Cross Country Checkup on CBC Radio this weekend. You can check out the full episode online at cbc.ca with all the links to the national shows.
The puck may have dropped on the playoffs, but the news doesn't stop for hockey. I'm Brittany Greenslade, host of CBC Winnipeg News at 6. To get your local news, stream CBC Winnipeg News at 6, 24/7 on CBC Gem, the CBC News app, and selected streaming platforms. CBC Winnipeg News at 6, your local news on your favorite streaming device.
On the topics that matter, your voice should be heard.
It looks like this is maybe a one-day blip when farmers across the province need hot and dry.
Radio Noon is where you can voice your take.
In general, it's harder to find a job even if you're educated.
I'm Marjorie Dowhouse. From 12:15 to 1 p.m., Radio Noon opens the phone lines on one important topic.
When I was 5 or 6, my parents gave me seeds and helped me plant them. That was probably close to 70 years ago. And here I am still gardening.
It just brings everyone together. Radio Noon's call-in segment, 204-780-0893. We want to hear from you weekdays on CBC.
11 minutes to 7 o'clock. Today's call-in on CBC Manitoba's Radio Noon is all about a report that just came out at 5 o'clock this morning. This is Food Banks Canada's national report. They call it their report card, in fact. They give the country a grade on how we're doing with inequity and food bank usage and policies, and then they go through each and every province. So their top line here, just looking at the report, is that we have slightly improved across Canada in food security, going from a D plus in 2024 to a D. The recommendations that they have made are to restore the $3 billion commitment to improve social assistance, to fulfill commitment, to introduce a grocery rebate. Pardon me, that's specific to BC. That is BC's grade, D plus to D, and those are some of their specifics. If we look overall in Canada, the top line is that things improve slightly in 2026, but they say for Canada, without urgent federal action to modernize EI and provincial and territorial improvements to social assistance, that progress is at risk moving forward. So in Manitoba, which is the grade we want to look at here, we went from a D minus to a C minus, so there was improvement according to their measurements. But one of the things, or three of the things that they want to improve are increasing and indexing employment and income assistance rates. That's a policy recommendation out of the report. Developing a comprehensive provincial food security strategy and enhancing the Rent Assist program. So we're going to get some reaction to those recommendations out of the Food Bank Canada's report this morning, and we're going to get reaction from Harvest Manitoba coming up later in the show, and we'll see if they agree with those policy recommendations and what they think are the situations looking like here where we live. So that's coming up. Right now it's 9 minutes to 7 o'clock, and let's look at something else that the federal government's rolled out that is affecting provinces. I'm talking about the Canadian Dental Care Plan, and for people who are enrolled, today's the last day to renew if you don't want a gap in your coverage. So the program is available to people who don't already have insurance and who have a net adjusted family income that is under $90,000. To talk about it, Christy Kirkup is with us, national health reporter with the Globe and Mail. Good morning.
Good morning.
Why do people need to renew their coverage?
Yeah, I think this is really the rub of our conversation today because even when I learned that people were going to have to, apply to renew to be part of the program, I was wondering, well, why would this be the case? And the government is saying that, this is really, Marcy, about ensuring the program is going to the right people. So people have to confirm things like their income, again, making sure they're below that number that you just mentioned, that $90,000 household income, whether they have gained dental insurance through work, because again, this is about ensuring that people who don't have access to dental insurance actually get care, whether folks are still living in Canada, whether they filed their taxes, whether their spouse or common law partner has filed their taxes. So again, a number of different terms that actually people who are going to be accessing care through this program are going to have to meet on an annual basis. They're going to have to do this every single year.
I wonder if they're going to look to change that in the future, if this is just because it's in the early, stages of a brand new program. Because in one of their previous announcements, they were trying to streamline things for caregivers so they wouldn't have to do something every year. And here they are with dental saying every year. There have been reports of people denied coverage for more complicated procedures, crowns, for example. What's been the issue there?
Yeah, there have been hiccups that have been documented, certainly with this program, Marcy. Again, some patients, and you were describing, an issue, for example, that was picked up in a CBC story about someone talking about a crown that, what they were told that the federal government wasn't going to be willing to pay for that. And I will just say that this program at its core is about the basics. It's about things like checkups and cleanings and fillings, dentures. But again, people could be subject to losing their eligibility if there were to be factors that change. So again, perhaps that is also why the federal government is saying on an annual basis, it's important to check in to see, if people's income has been altered or if they have dental insurance through other means, for example. But certainly there have been other critiques as well. Excuse me. losing my voice here this morning, Marcy.
No worries. Take your time.
Some dentists saying they don't want to participate because of onerous paperwork, that they are getting lower payments than they otherwise would get. This isn't, I'll just say, unheard of when you're talking about a national program, right? The rollout of a national program, there are going to be challenges. But I will just say that the federal health minister has said that 6.5 million Canadians are now eligible, and that some 4 million have already accessed services under the program. So what we're really talking about, I think, is a higher volume of people that are going to be eligible. And so, there are going to be, it's going to be more complicated. There's more red tape involved for everyone, right? For patients, for the dentists, for the government. And I think on a go forward basis, a key part of the conversation will be, can any of this be streamlined, to be simplified for people to be able to make these claims and not have these back and forth with the government? Because certainly there have been, again, a number of those documented challenges that we've been touching upon.
Well, and it's interesting because one asked whether or not there should be limits on what the program is obliged to cover, but then most of us know how expensive dental work gets. So having said that, if you can't afford to go for your cleaning, you're not going to be able to afford to go for something more extensive. So and how long will they be able to sort of float in that? It sounds like it's still a bit of a gray area for the feds, right?
Yeah, for sure. I think, again, it just as you described it, I think that again is really where the friction comes in this conversation, because, some groups have called for the dental plan to be expanded in order to cover more services that, again, not to belittle the importance of, again, a thing like a cleaning, where I've talked to, I remember during the last federal election campaign, speaking to one person in particular who was describing, Marcy, going to the dentist for the first time in years to have their teeth cleaned that they otherwise could not afford. And they had tears in their eyes, and they were talking about the human dignity that is getting your teeth cleaned. Again, not to say that is not of consequence. It is certainly for patients. But briefly, as a little piece of history here, it was under the last government that this program was conceptualized, the Trudeau government. And the Trudeau government had to work really closely with the federal NDP in a minority government. And then leader of the NDP, Jagmeet Singh, was really pushing for dental care. Now the NDP, again, saying that this program has become, in terms of its function, not the whether patients should actually get the care, but they're saying that the function of it, the system, has become complicated and that it's too hard for patients to navigate. The federal Conservatives, on the other hand, saying, again, they're pointing to concerns about the expense of this program. Some dentists saying, again, that the government is paying less than their usual rate. And so for them, that it's a problem and they don't want to participate in this program. So I would say the big piece is, really about the function of this program, and again, whether or not it can actually be simplified in nature in order to make it easier for patients, for the dentists, and for the federal government.
Moving forward. All right, Kirsty, thank you. Kirsty, thank you very much for your time. Appreciate it.
Great to speak with you.
You too. That's Kirsty Kirkup with us, national health reporter with the Globe and Mail. We're coming up to 7 o'clock. We've got a couple things to cover here. So first of all, the heat. It's 16 degrees. It's going to be again a high of 28 today. Chance of a thunderstorm this afternoon, a 30% chance in Winnipeg. Heat warning, yellow heat warning from the north, Norway House, the Paw, Flin Flon, Thompson, all around 30 degrees today. Traffic update. This one's big. Northbound Israeli Freeway is currently closed. Crews say they're fighting a fire on Argyle Street. Sorry, Corey, is that 199? Okay, that is in the... that doesn't make any sense to me. Okay, I'm going to get Corey to come in and just say this because it looks like it's 1 on Argyle Street. I don't get the 1 to 99. Is that the full block? Is that what you're telling us?
The address is 1 to 99 Argyle Street.
Okay,
yeah. So
it's the full block.
The block,
there.
Yes,
okay.
Exactly.
Thank you, sorry.
No problem.
Making sure we get it. Just your big thing is northbound Israeli Freeway is closed. Heather Wells is here with headlines.
A national pro-choice group has taken up the cause of a 94-year-old Steinbach area woman who wants to die. Marion Penner is bedridden, suffering from several ailments. She was denied medical assistance in dying or MAID earlier this year, and now she refuses to take her medications in an effort to hasten her own death. So we'll hear more about that. Thousands came to downtown Winnipeg over the weekend for the Taste of Asia Food Festival. Lourdes Federis, the festival founder, says the event highlights Winnipeg's multiculturalism. This was the 4th year of the festival in Winnipeg. I'll be back with more Manitoba news at 7:30.
All right. Thank you, Heather.
Thanks.
Coming up also after 7 o'clock, a Manitoba woman will be running 7 marathons in 7 straight days on 7 continents. We're going to talk to her about how she's preparing for this epic race. And then, have you ever wondered if some people taste better to mosquitoes than others? Have you ever thought, would it really be so bad if we got rid of all the mosquitoes? We're going to put some of the commonly asked questions and little-known facts to a biology professor this hour, now that the skeeter season has officially begun. And we'll have more in that story Heather was just mentioning about the Manitoba woman denied MAID. We will hear from Dying with Dignity Canada in the next hour about how this case looks to them, and also how it compares across the country to others that are trying to access medical assistance in dying. So stay tuned. That's all still ahead on Information Radio. I'm Marcy Marcusa, 1 minute to 7 o'clock, and you are with CBC. Stay with us because World Report's next at the top of the clock.
Today on The Current.
We remain optimistic.
June 1st, the deadline for the Canada-US-Mexico Agreement CUSMA review is exactly a month away. What is the future for Canada's trade relationship with the U.S. and how Canada should approach negotiations as the deadline looms? On The Current with guest host Mark Kelly this morning at 8:37, 9:07 in Newfoundland, and on the CBC Listen app.
This is World Report. Good morning, I'm Martina Fitzgerald. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has ordered his country's military to expand strikes in Lebanon's capital. A statement released this morning says the attacks are on a southern region of Beirut, calling it a Hezbollah stronghold, adding the strikes are in response to Hezbollah's repeated ceasefire violations. Israel's military continues to concentrate much of its effort on southern Lebanon. The CBC's Willie Lowry has more from Jerusalem.
A bulldozer clears debris from a gaping hole where once a building stood, the result of another Israeli airstrike on the city of Tyre in southern Lebanon. Resident Nawal Iskandar says she refuses to leave despite Israeli orders to evacuate. As a precaution, she says, I get ready and we go to a safer area. We've been hit with a lot of strikes. Israel says it's targeting Hezbollah infrastructure in Tyre and other Lebanese cities. And now Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says he's ordered the military to resume strikes on Dahieh, a Hezbollah stronghold in southern Beirut. Israel says Hezbollah has repeatedly violated a U.S.-brokered ceasefire. Michael Herzog is the former Israeli ambassador to the United States.
There's no ceasefire, there's only fire.
But many in Lebanon say Israel is trying to sabotage a U.S.-Iran peace deal that would include an end to the conflict in Lebanon. Faras Abiad is a former Lebanese minister of public health.
Israel, unfortunately, continues to use the pretext to launch this war on Lebanon, to, in our opinion, to derail the whole process between the U.S. and Iran.
U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio spoke with both Israeli and Lebanese leaders over the weekend and called on Hezbollah to first stop its attacks on Israel and then for Israel to refrain from escalating attacks on Beirut. Willie Lowry, CBC News, Jerusalem.
In Iran. A spokesperson for the country's foreign ministry blames the slow pace in U.S.-Iran peace talks on a lack of trust. He's accusing the United States of issuing contradictory demands and inconsistent media messages while breaking the ceasefire that was established in April. The U.S. confirms it carried out what it calls defensive strikes on Iran over the weekend. But U.S. President Donald Trump is taking an optimistic tone in a post on social media this morning. He says that Iran really wants to make a deal and that it will work out well in the end, adding it always does. Today is the deadline for U.S. Trade Czar Jameson Greer to notify Congress of any changes coming to CUSMA. All 3 countries must meet in a month to discuss renewing the agreement, though the Americans are signaling talks are likely to stretch on well past July 1st. Janice McGregor joins us now from Ottawa. Janice, what are we watching for today?
Martina, Congress holds the authority over trade treaties, so Donald Trump's trade representative has to report to legislators regularly. As a result, the irritants from the American side have already been published in a report earlier this year. Jameson Greer has said he wants to negotiate side letters with both Canada and Mexico to address these issues rather than reopen CUSMA. But word of a significant disagreement is emerging. If Mexico, and by extension Canada as well, want to continue to avoid the 25% global tariff that's in place for automobiles and vehicle parts from other countries. According to those reports, which CBC hasn't independently verified, the Americans want to raise the regional content requirement in the existing CUSMA from 75% to 82% of a vehicle's components. And whereas right now, 40% of the core parts in a car have to be made in a high-wage jurisdiction, meaning not Mexico, the Americans now want 50% to come from America alone, and that is a new threat to Canadian suppliers. Canada's Minister Dominic LeBlanc says it's not helpful for him to speculate on any changes at this point.
And Janice, what about the changes that Canada would like to see?
Well, Canada doesn't have the same disclosure requirements, but LeBlanc told Power and Politics last week that the Americans aren't the only ones with issues they want to fix.
But we also have a list of things that Canada wants. We remain optimistic that we can find a circumstance where we recommit to the trilateral trading agreement and deal with any bilateral issues that the United States and Canada want to deal with.
LeBlanc and his chief negotiator, Janice Charette, had a one-hour video conference with the USTR and his deputy last week, but we're still waiting for confirmation of when they're going to meet in person.
Janice McGregor in our Parliamentary Bureau. Thank you, Janice.
You're welcome.
We're expecting to hear more about Ottawa's strategy to combat anti-Semitism and hate in Canada. Prime Minister Mark Carney will be detailing the government's plan today in Toronto. Police recently arrested 2 people for separate shooting incidents targeting visibly Jewish people in the Toronto area. Jewish advocacy group B'nai B'rith says anti-Jewish hate has been increasing since the October 7th Hamas attacks in 2023. A new initiative in northern BC is looking to reclaim Indigenous language through literature. It involves elders from the Lheidli T'enneh First Nation. Their traditional territory includes Prince George. As Hannah Peterson reports, they're using illustrated books to preserve their oral history.
Most of the stories that we have now are of elders that have passed on.
Pat Seymour is an elder with the Lheidli T'enneh First Nation. The community is part of the broader Daketh people, encompassing multiple First Nations throughout north central BC. She attended the first gathering for a project called Legends Retold, where Lheidli elders are coming together to share oral legends so they can be made into a series of published books, illustrated by Lheidli T'enneh artists.
It's bringing back our culture, it's bringing back our language, it's bringing our people to a place where they know who they are again, because a lot of that was stolen from us when settlers came in and the residential schools happened.
Carrie Chersanoff is the coordinator leading the project. She says many elders grew up without hearing stories passed down from their parents, but fortunately, some elders' stories have already been recorded on paper or video. Chersanoff says she hopes the storybooks will preserve and revitalize cultural teachings for the next generation.
Stories are a great way to learn where we come from, who we are.
Clifford Qua is a Lheidli residential school survivor who helps teach the Daketh language in schools around Prince George. He says he hopes this project will become a lasting cultural resource.
Because we're running short of elders who can speak. Once I go, I'm gone.
Chersanoff says the Elder Society will work with language experts to refine the stories and hope to begin publishing next year. Hannah Peterson, CBC News, Prince George.
After 2 years of labor friction, postal workers in this country will find out if they have a new tentative agreement. The Canadian Union of Postal Workers will release the result of its official ballot later today. 55,000 employees began voting on the new agreement in April. The proposed 5-year contract would include wage increases of 6.5% and 3% in the first 2 years. The union's president has asked members to reject it, arguing it rolls back rights and compensation. Just 12 days to go before Canada's men begin their FIFA World Cup journey in Toronto. And there's still some fine-tuning, including tonight in Edmonton. Emily Fitzpatrick tees it up for us.
The rain poured down as Canada's World Cup soccer team practiced on Sunday. They'll play their first friendly match ahead of the FIFA World Cup tonight in Edmonton against Uzbekistan. Coach Jesse Marsh says it's a chance for the team to find its groove.
We know at a moment like this that even if they're only playing 45 minutes and it's a friendly, that each guy has to be at his maximum, then making sure that we deliver a good performance and get a result.
Missing from practice, captain and hometown hero Alphonso Davies. He won't be playing tonight as he nurses a hamstring injury, but will be in attendance supporting the team. Co-captain Stefan Eustachio is eager for his return.
I just can't wait for him to be ready to help us push this tournament because we really need him. I think he's one of the players in our team. There's not many, but there's a couple that really can make us go far in this tournament.
It's been just over 4 years since Canada's men's team played in Edmonton, the last time they beat Mexico to qualify for the 2022 World Cup. Marsh says those memories are a big reason they're back.
And so I ask that everybody just comes out and loves this team, and even in the rain.
Despite the weather, more than 50,000 fans are expected at tonight's game. Afterwards, the team will head off to Montreal for one more friendly match, before Canada's first FIFA World Cup game, June 12th in Toronto. Emily Fitzpatrick, CBC News, Edmonton.
That is the latest national and international news from World Report. I'm Martina Fitzgerald. This is CBC News.
Bright and sunny out there, everybody, and looking like another hot, windy day with a slight chance of a shower. In fact, it just started raining in Brandon. Just some light rain coming down right now. This is CBC. I'm Marcy Marcusa. You're with 89.3 FM, 990 AM on that app and on YouTube. This hour on the program, we will talk to Dying with Dignity Canada. They're weighing in on a story you might have heard in the news this morning, a CBC Manitoba story we've been following. A 94-year-old woman from our province is being told by Shared Health that it will be difficult to reapply for medical assistance in dying. So now she's taking matters into her own hands and she has stopped taking her medication. We're going to hear more about the case and the development. Stay tuned for that. In addition, this hour on the show, did you get bitten this weekend? The mosquitoes are out. People are already swatting and talking about how big they are. We're going to look at a biology professor's answers to some of the most common questions about mosquitoes and some of the most surprising ones. So stay tuned for that. Right now, let's go to Heather Wells. She has other details on other news stories developing this morning. Hello.
Good morning. Well, the Union for Winnipeg Firefighters says inaction from the city is driving the number of fatal fires. At least 12 people have died in fires so far this year in Winnipeg. Adam Smithson at the United Firefighters of Winnipeg says the critical branch for fire prevention is understaffed and crews on the ground are also stretched thin, delaying response times to fires. Manitoba is ramping up its efforts to control measles by connecting with people in the hardest hit areas. The province is phoning around, inviting people in the Southern Health region to a town hall on Wednesday. Manitoba so far this year has recorded more than 600 cases of measles. I'll be back with more Manitoba news coming up at 7:30.
All right. Thanks, Heather.
Thank you.
Well, let's get into the weather forecast. I know this weekend, Corey, I was like, oh, hang on. I haven't washed these shorts since last summer. Like I was pulling out some stuff and I'm like, I better give some things some laundry before I put them on. But I needed all the hot weather clothes all of a sudden.
I know. It was wild out there. I was hot. But right now, Winnipeg, for now at least, we have a little bit of a reprieve today. We're sitting at 16 right now at the Forks. It is going to be warming up to 28 today, a little bit less warm than it has been in the last little while. But if you are up north, though, you do have a yellow heat warning in effect right now. We're talking about highs in the low 30s. Like if you're in Thompson area, Lynn Lake, the Paw, even down in central Manitoba as well. So very warm day up north. Still quite a warm day down south here, and also down south here in Winnipeg, about a 30% chance of showers this afternoon. Also a risk of a thunderstorm as well, with the wind 30 gusting to 50 this morning. So look out for that. Let's move to your commute right now, though. Winnipeg, the biggest issue right now is that northbound Disraeli freeway closed right now entirely. You actually can't turn from Main Street to head towards Disraeli because there's a fire right now that crews are fighting on Argyle Street. And that's that first block of Argyle Street right off of the the Disraeli Freeway, on the path to the Disraeli Freeway there. So look out for that. You're going to want to find another road if you're looking to get over the Disraeli to Henderson there. If you see anything else going on, though, if you're walking, you're biking, you're driving, you can give me a call. Oh, actually, I do have one more update also for active commuters as well. The Forks River Trail, you can take it now all the way from the ledge to the Forks. It's very muddy now, though, so keep an eye out for that. Tried to go there with my little guy. I was running with him, a stroller run, and I went down there, and it was like muddy, and we were like...
Did you slide?
Oh, yeah, a little bit.
Did he love it?
He loved it.
I was going to say, Calvin was probably going, woo!
Exactly. We did some Peppa Pig. We were going up and down in muddy puddles. Love that. So look out for that. Yeah, but be careful. You might get your shoes mucky. Look out for that. If you see anything else going on, if you're walking, you're biking, you're driving, give me a call on the CBC commuter line. That number 204-788-3093.
Well, up first this half hour on CBC, speaking of running with your kid or not, and also the fact that the Manitoba Marathon is coming up in 2 weeks. We have a bit of a big inspiration for those of you who want to get out and about. You might have heard of Around the World in 80 days, but how about getting around the world in 7? Imagine, in addition to traveling, you're also running a full marathon in each of those days. That's what one Manitoban has signed up to do this fall. It's called the Great World Race. It's an event that runs over the course of a week in November. So participants visit every continent in the course of 7 days. They run a marathon, as I said, in each place. Carolyn Drury is one of the 60 participants in this year's race, and she's now in studio to talk about it. Good morning.
Thank you. Hello. Good morning.
So how does this work? You get on a plane that takes you everywhere?
You get on a plane that takes you everywhere. So it's a chartered experience. This is not flying commercial because I do not know how that would be possible. You get on a plane with me and 59 other people and fly to Antarctica, then South Africa, and then Perth, Australia, Singapore, Europe, obviously Portugal for Europe, then South America, and then Miami, and then you're done. So you basically run, fly.
And how are you? Have you ever done anything close to this before with your body?
Never in my life.
Okay.
No.
So what's
never.
the closest you've come? You've clearly run a marathon.
I've run a marathon. I've run a couple marathons. I'm not a fast marathoner, but I am built for endurance. So this is going to be the ultimate test of endurance.
Why do you want to do the ultimate test of endurance for yourself personally?
2 reasons. Number one being that I'm a women's fitness coach, and I've had the immense privilege of coaching women 40, 50, 60, 70 plus years old. And I've watched them reinvent themselves through fitness. That's the avenue by which they do it. And it is so inspiring to me. And I could just talk forever just about that topic. But I then continually look for myself. How can I push my own limits? How can I push what I think is possible for myself? So when I saw the Great World Race, something clicked and I thought that was it. And then I immediately told myself, I couldn't do it. And I thought, no, you have to do this.
You also, your own journey was like from office worker, was classic, like office worker to being more fit.
Yes. Yeah. And that's a message that I really want people to be able to take away from this is, because that was my journey. People think, you're doing 7 marathons in 7 days. You must have always been an ultra runner. And that's absolutely, it couldn't be farther from the truth. Anyone can go onto my Instagram and look at my journey over the past 5 years. I was a corporate 40-year-old, and then COVID happened. I made a massive fitness change during that time. Kind of rediscovered my love of running that I had when I was a teenager, and just through baby steps led me here. And that is the course of any goal that you want to accomplish. It's done in baby steps. And this just happens to be where it led me. And, I have not been, ultra marathon Caroline my whole life by any means.
What's it like working with women at the age groups you mentioned, 40, 50, 60, when I'm a woman in that age group. So I wonder what it's like for people to rediscover their bodies in a new way when our bodies are changing entirely anyway. Like, people talk so much about teenagers and, we all know we say teenagers and we say puberty, and everybody knows immediately what we're talking about. There's still less talk about how significant that change is physically to your body when you're now effectively done with puberty, done with your reproduction. And it's just to rediscover fitness at that, in those periods for women is a big deal.
It's huge. It's very multifaceted. It is not one Instagram quote fix all. And that's what I love about coaching women this age is that they come to me with these, because it's psychological, it's physical. I tend to talk about it like a second puberty, because things are happening in their bodies that we cannot understand or explain, and it's so different for every single woman. So taking the psychological effects and then the physical effects, pair that with fitness and nutrition, and going back to those baby steps, it's sometimes taking immense baby steps to figure out what works for you. But why I love working with women of this age is I call it the age of wisdom, because we have the wisdom. I'm 46, so I generally tend to draw women to me that are older than me, but we have the life experience to know that some things just don't work, but then the courage to actually take the steps to do those tiny little things that work for them. And that leads to massive change over time, but it is very individual. And I think that that's something that each woman should go into, whatever fitness journey they're going into, honoring.
How are you training for this crazy feat?
It's very much like training for a marathon. It's not more complicated than that up until the very end. At the very end, that's when you have to, or I will have to, I have about another 8 weeks of training past when a traditional marathon training block would end, where I have to then start stacking long runs. So instead of just one single long run a week, then I have to stack multiple long runs.
To see what that feels like.
Yes. Yep. And eventually it culminates in running 3 22-mile long runs in a row. The advice that I got from the coach on the team of the Great World Race said, absolutely do not do more than 3 22-mile runs in a row. That will be the culmination.
You got to save something.
You have to save something. And our desire to do this leads us to want to do more, but that will then burn myself out and lead to injury right at the end. So are you using the Manitoba Marathon at all this year? Is that half marathon? You're doing the half? Yes. I contemplated. I went back and forth. Should I do the full? I did the full last year. But I mean, I love the Manitoba Marathon course. I love the environment. I love the energy. So my husband is now running half marathons. So I thought, well, I'm going to do the half marathon. We'll do it together, have the energy of the course, celebrate, being on this path. And
Which marathon are you most excited to be running when you think about all these countries you're going to be visiting?
I am actually most excited to run in Antarctica. I trained all through the Manitoba winter this year. I was minus 40 out there, minus 30 out there. And of course, we know in Manitoba, we can get some pretty nasty winds in the wintertime. So I really wanted to test my gear because that's the one that can kind of really psychologically get to you, being the cold and the wind. So I feel very prepared for Antarctica. I feel the least prepared for running in Cartagena, South America, or Colombia in South America, because generally, it's about 40 plus degrees Celsius and 100% humidity.
Yeah, we think we know heat.
So I'm actually really trying to figure out right now science-backed protocols that I can use to train for humidity, because we don't get the humidity here.
And also that following your body going through all the climates.
100%. Yeah.
We'll have to follow your journey, Carolyn. Thanks for telling us how you're starting to prepare for it as running season gears up here. Appreciate meeting you.
No, really nice to be here. Thank you.
That's Carolyn Drury, fitness coach based in Manitoba, and we're talking to her about what is coming up for her in November. She is going to be part of the Great World Race. Time right now, 7:21.
Wasn't born a hero, just doing what I have to. Saw the need and let it take the lead in me. Now the first steps seem so much simpler than the last ones before me now. Run, though the road it narrows, you won't find me anywhere else till it's done. Run, one foot in front of the other, for it could mean tomorrow for someone. Run. Though I stumble through the Bay of Thunder, where we ended up is so far from there now. I believed it because I had to, nothing to go back to, no way, no how. Run, though one foot in front of the other, for it could mean tomorrow for someone. Run. One foot in front of the other, for it could mean tomorrow for someone. It could mean tomorrow for someone. Run.
William Prince and Run on CBC. Beautiful morning out there to do so. You're going to have lots of water, though. It's already 17 degrees. Well, if you are not on foot and you're driving, note that northbound Israeli Freeway is currently closed. Crews are fighting a fire in the first block of Argyle Street, so commuters are having to find other routes. You can't turn right onto Disraeli. 788-3093 if you do want to reach us with an update there. Well, still ahead, did you get bitten yet?
And what you have to worry about is periods of rain followed by heat.
Coming up, what a biology professor has to say about Manitobans and why we might need to start preparing for mosquito season in earnest. And I know over the weekend I saw a lot of mosquitoes out and about. They were huge, actually, in some of the city backyards. So we're going to put to the biology professor also some of the most commonly asked questions that you had about mosquitoes. Right now, let's talk about sports. With us live is Scott Regehr. Good morning.
I'm a former tree planter. Spent a lot of time out in the bush planting trees, and mosquitoes. I've got a long history with them, so I want to listen to what he has to say coming up.
Yeah, man. We've actually been spoiled for a few summers here, but we're known for having some wicked summers with mosquitoes. Kitchener has won the Memorial Cup in hockey.
They have, easily beating the Western Hockey League champ Everett Silvertips yesterday. Kitchener went undefeated at this tournament, the fourth national junior title for the Rangers, who have produced many an NHL star over the years. Paul Coffey, Al McInnes, Larry Robinson, the list just goes on. These days, Marcy, it's Tampa Bay Lightning prospect Sam O'Reilly, who's the star of the show. He had 4 points. He was named the tournament MVP. Kitchener acquired him, along with star defenseman Jared Woolley, in a blockbuster deal with their biggest rivals mid-season. With last year's Memorial Cup champs, the London Knights, they made that deal. And Kitchener GM Mike McKenzie says the trade was pivotal in winning this championship.
It was important to bring in guys like that had that experience and that will to win. And it felt like we maybe had to make a trade with London at some point, metaphorically, to get over the hump. So we did it, and it worked out. Sam and Jared were both unbelievable for us.
Sam O'Reilly didn't just win the Memorial Cup MVP, he also won the awards as the CHL's best during the entire playoffs as well as the entire regular season. He is just the fourth player in junior hockey history to win the MVP Triple Crown. The others all went on to become pretty good players. Brad Richards, Corey Perry, Mitch Marner. And for those wondering how the Tampa Bay Lightning got O'Reilly's rights, they got him in a deal with the Edmonton Oilers, whose GM Stan Bowman this morning must be, well, I don't know. Second thoughts? Brought in a good player in Isaac Howard, but yeah, O'Reilly's something special.
Let's go to soccer. Another big injury for Canada, unfortunately, right ahead of the World Cup now.
Man, oh man. The country was already dealing, of course, with Alphonso Davies being out for at least some of the tournament. Now it's going to have to go without midfielder Marcelo Flores for the whole thing. Flores suffered a torn knee ligament while playing for his Mexican club Tigres over the weekend. A devastating blow for Canada, as Flores is one of the few players who can change a match in an instant. He works really well in tight spaces. He's an explosive dribbler, and he creates chances some of his teammates don't even see coming at times. Fellow midfielder Stefan Eustaquio says Flores will be dearly missed.
It's very unfortunate knowing that, seeing the videos of when he was selected, his family crying of joy, and it was very important for us as a person, but as well as a player. We have an extra motivation to go through this World Cup, to make him proud, and as all Canadians, hopefully he can at some stage meet us and give us his strength. It's tough, but it's football.
Flores switched his playing allegiance to Canada from Mexico earlier this year. His dad's Mexican. His mom was born in Georgetown, Ontario. So that was a bold decision. And at this World Cup, anyway, the family will not be rewarded for it. Meantime, Coach Jesse Marsh has not named a replacement for Flores as he prepares for a friendly match tonight against Uzbekistan. That game, Marcy, is going to be played in driving rain, slippery conditions on a brand new grass field. Let's just cross our fingers those who do play do so carefully.
Finally, a big day in tennis also.
Yeah, Felix Auger-Aliassime, Marcy, has a chance to earn a spot in the French Open quarterfinals. The Montrealer will take on Chile's Alejandro Tabilo this morning. It has been a challenging tournament so far for Felix, including Saturday's competitive four-setter against American Brandon Nakashima. Now, it's going to be interesting because Felix is the top-ranked player in his side of the draw now. Jannik Sinner, Carlos Alcaraz, Novak Djokovic, they're all out. This is his best chance ever to win Canada first ever men's Grand Slam title. He'll play at 8:30 this morning Central Time.
All right. Thanks a lot, Scott.
You betcha.
Scott Regehr with Morning Sports. I'm Marcy Marcusa. Thanks for joining us here on Information Radio. Live this morning from downtown Winnipeg on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on that app and on YouTube. Your news from Manitoba this Monday morning is coming up next.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 7:30, it is 17 degrees. The heat warnings for southern Manitoba are over as we start the month of June, but we're still feeling hot. A high today of 28. A Steinbach area woman denied medical assistance in dying, or MAID, has taken matters into her own hands. 94-year-old Marion Penner is bedridden. She is now trying to hasten her death by refusing her medication. She was denied MAID earlier this year and then was moved from her hometown of Steinbach to a facility more than 50 kilometers away. Penner is now on an 18-month waiting list for a palliative care bed and a complicated MAID appeal process. Penner says this is not how she wanted to die.
I just thought maybe it just made more sense rather than working really hard at prolonging a life in the 90s. Just let nature do its thing, see what happens.
CBC reported in March, Manitobans are far more likely to be denied MAID eligibility than anywhere else in Canada. You can hear more on this story coming up in this next half hour right here on Information Radio. A house fire near a busy Point Douglas street is causing some delays this morning. CBC reporter Megan Ketchison has details. Megan?
Yes, this was a call that fire crews got about just before 5 o'clock this morning. It's a two-story white house that's tucked in right next to the Disraeli Freeway. You've probably driven by it a million times and never noticed it before. But there was a fire there this morning in the second floor. I was speaking with the platoon chief on the scene, and he says the person who lives inside the house got out safely, but they did have to block Disraeli from Main Street all the way to Argyle. That should be opening up just now. And now I'm at another fire. This is at Lizzie and Logan, and it looks like a massive tree is on fire, and there may have been tents and whatnot in the parking lot around that tree. So fire crews are here. It's not affecting traffic on Logan, but if you were seeing huge plumes of smoke in the downtown, that's what you were seeing. Reporting live, Megan Ketchison, CBC News.
Thanks so much, Megan. At least 12 people have lost their lives so far this year in fires in Winnipeg. Fire Paramedic Service Deputy Chief Scott Wilkinson says criminal activity is behind some of the fires, but he says in many cases, substance abuse or poverty increase the likelihood of injuries or deaths. Wilkinson says those issues need to be addressed.
We need more prevention, education, and operational staff to make sure we're meeting the needs of the city and keeping our people safe. But it can't just be that, because we would never be able to manage it. We need to put our efforts into community risk reduction and managing the issues that we see on the street today, which are extremely tragic.
In a statement, a spokesperson for the mayor says the city has added 44 full-time firefighting positions in the last 2 years, but adds many of the issues connected to fire risk require strong provincial support. The province is holding a town hall on measles this week in southern Manitoba, part of a direct outreach strategy to build trust in regions where vaccine uptake is low. People from the region are being called and invited to the Wednesday town hall. An expert in public health communication says town halls are a space for two-way conversations. Melissa McKay encourages any health officials to be non-judgmental and transparent.
Not just it's safe, it's effective, we need herd immunity or whatever our main messages usually are around vaccines. It has to be a genuine connection with that person.
More than 600 measles cases have been reported in Manitoba this year, 2/3 of all the cases in Canada. Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre is calling for a debate on affordability today in the House of Commons. He says it would give Prime Minister Mark Carney a chance to inform Canadians about his economic plans. This after a Statistics Canada report last week indicated the economy was in a technical recession. The Liberal government has already dismissed Poilievre's request, saying it's focused on implementing its economic strategy, not on what it calls political theater. You can hear more national and international news coming up on World Report at 8. Using beads and threads to raise cash. More than 100 Winnipeggers took part in a beadathon yesterday to help St. Boniface Museum. Host Lisa Hetrick says the celebration of Métis culture will help preserve an important piece of Manitoba history.
The museum itself originally was the first church, the first hospital, the first orphanage, the first of everything. And basically the community grew around the museum. And now I'm asking the community to come together and support the museum. It is more than just an old building holding old things.
The museum is closed to the public because of renovations, and money raised through the beadathon goes to repairs. Well, thousands went to downtown Winnipeg over the weekend for the Taste of Asia Food Festival. Musical performances and dozens of food vendors in Memorial Park. Lord Federice is the founder of the celebration.
Opportunity to see each other, talk to each other, exchange stories, exchange recipes, and that just, and the celebration itself.
Federice also says the event highlights Winnipeg's multiculturalism, especially in Asian communities. This was the 4th year the festival has been held. You can find more news updated throughout the day. All you have to do is head to cbc.ca/Manitoba.
I went to a beer and local food pairing this weekend.
Really?
Yeah, we were eating cocoa and rocks. It looked like mud and rock.
Excuse me?
Well, it looked like mud and rocks, but the rocks were chocolates. Like, it was so cool. And then like local tomatoes and like corn and like, it was just, it was very cool.
And they paired different styles of beer with
the food. It was wild. Yeah, we had to forage for our dessert. That was fun too. Like, you'd look at the tablescape and you'd have to find your dessert in there, and it was like a chocolate log thing, but it was wrapped up, so it looked like a log. It was masquerading among the tomatoes and stuff.
Oh, I'd find it.
Yeah. All right, thanks, Heath. I found mine too. Let's get into what's happening here in the weather forecast. Corey Funk is back, and then he's going to dive right into the commute as well.
My 1-year-old would have loved that because she loves eating actual rocks that I can pull out of her mouth all the time.
These were better, Siggy, and they're better for you.
So let's look at your weather today. Right now, it's a cool 17 right now in Winnipeg at the Forks. We are heading for a high today of 28, which feels like a slight reprieve from what it's been. Below 30, that somehow feels cool in comparison now. But we can expect throughout southern Manitoba today a chance of showers this afternoon, and also a risk of a thunderstorm ahead as well. So keep an eye out for that. Looking as well, heading to Brandon right now, you're sitting at 17 as well. Your high today is actually being much cooler, 24 is what you're looking towards. Also, there is a bit of you might be seeing some rain actually right now, some light rain in Brandon. Also a risk of a thunderstorm. You're going to be mainly cloudy throughout the day. Dauphin, you're sitting at 17 right now. Your high is going to be 28. A bit of a higher chance of showers today and a risk of a thunderstorm this afternoon as well. Heading up north, there is still a yellow heat warning in effect for much of northern Manitoba as well as central Manitoba today. So that includes places like Thompson, Flin Flon, Lynn Lake, Norway House, and the Paw. So that means highs in the low 30s or so. Thompson, right now, you're sitting at 18. Your high is expected to be about 30. No rain in the forecast for you today. Turning to your commute right now, the biggest issue all morning, of course, has been that closure on northbound Israeli Freeway, but that is now open. So you can go down the northbound Disraeli towards Henderson. That was closed earlier because of a fire on Argyle, but that is now open, so you can go there. If you do see anything else going on, you can give me a call on the CBC commuter line. I'll let people know about that trail I was mentioning earlier. The river trail from the Ledge to the Forks, you can go down it now, but beware, it is still kind of mucky. You might get your shoes a little bit wetter. Your bike tires might be a bit of a slog, especially as you're closer to the Ledge. But as you get a bit closer to the Forks, around the Forks, it's lovely. Saw a guy catch a fish there the other day. It was very fun. My toddler did not want to touch the fish, but he was very excited to see it. If you see anything else going on, give me a call on the CBC commuter line. That number, 204-788-3093.
All right. Thanks, Corey.
Thank you.
Well, no one's excited to see mosquitoes. Let's not mince words, but wet, cool conditions have shifted to hot, dry weather, and there they are. Steve Wired says it's bad for people who hate mosquitoes this weather because they're out. He's a biology professor at University of Manitoba who studies new ways to control the pesky critters. Next on the show, CBC's Jim Agapito went to his lab to hear all about it, and he also gets the professor to answer some of your mosquito questions.
What if Manitoba could shrink its mosquito population by releasing even more mosquitoes? We're at the University of Manitoba to speak to an expert who thinks that might be the key.
So what we're doing is looking at technologies to control mosquitoes using something other than conventional pesticides. As well as that, we're also working on a sterilization program. So this is a little mosquito cage. It's just a screen cage. It's got a little sleeve here that we can untie and reach in and out to either grab various things. So in here at the moment is just a little wick of sugar. So that's just a tube filled with sugar with just little cotton wicks for them to feed on, because the mosquitoes, both males and females, will happily feed on sugar. And I noticed that there are already a couple landing on me. So there are a few hungry females in there. So in this tank of water, I put in a paper towel that had been sitting for about a month drying out. But when we pop it in the water, the eggs will start to hatch. So all those little black dots are the eggs. And so there's probably a few hundred of them there. And underneath that, there's a little piece of food, which is just some guinea pig or rabbit chow that we pop in there. And what that will be is a substrate for bacteria. And they will then graze on the bacteria. They're not going to actually eat the fibrous material, but they will eat the bacteria that's on that. Over here, if you look here, now these are several days older, and now you can see there are what we call probably third instar larvae. They are actually breathing through little siphons out their back end, like little snorkels. And then the cool thing is that when they molt into the next stage, when they get to fourth instar, they're ready to molt into a pupa. And unlike a caterpillar pupa that sits stationary, these pupae are in water and they have predators. So they have to be able to escape. So they actually have eyes and they can move around.
Okay, Brittany, I gotta ask, is there a burning question you'd want to ask a mosquito expert about mosquitoes?
Well, I feel like they are more attracted to a certain blood type, so I was wondering if that was truth or myth or just something that's made up.
Everybody's got kind of a unique odor signature, and certain signatures are more attractive to certain species. So you may find in one place you're bitten all the time, but if you move to another place, you may not be as attractive any longer because you don't smell right. But the mosquitoes are picking up these odor cues, and they're going for the ones that smell the best to them.
Do they carry bad pathological diseases right now, or is that something I should not be concerned about?
Well, here in Manitoba, probably the short answer is no, not really. The incidence of these diseases here in Manitoba is extremely low. So there's one primary disease vector that we worry about more in the city of Winnipeg itself, and that's Culex tarsalis. So that's a Manitoban species that can transmit West Nile virus. And now West Nile virus is endemic here. If you get a mosquito bite, the likelihood of you being bitten by Culex tarsalis is also low, but the chance of it also being infective is also low. And then the good news is that if you are infected with this virus, only about 1 to 2% of individuals will suffer a serious disease. Most will be asymptomatic. 80% or more will be showing no symptoms. 20% might show some illness, like a little bit of a fever, and a small fraction of those people will maybe succumb to something more serious and need to be hospitalized.
Are they going to be bad this year?
And what you have to worry about is periods of rain followed by heat. So, because what happens is with rain here in Manitoba is it sits on the ground because we have a nice rich clay soil that doesn't let it drain quickly. So we have a lot of standing bodies of water that don't move much, and there are a lot of mosquitoes that love non-moving water. And so they will start to lay their eggs in there, and if there's a heat wave, they develop faster. So when we get a wet, soggy spring followed by some nice warm days, that will accelerate the development, and then you're going to have a wave of mosquitoes.
So if we get rid of mosquitoes, what happens to the other insects that, use it as their food in the ecosystem?
But if we were to eliminate all mosquitoes, then you're disrupting the aquatic ecosystem, because there are a lot of things that eat the larvae in the water. And then there are a variety of insects that are eating the adults. So eliminating a species entirely is an issue you need to consider carefully. My technology would never eliminate. It would just reduce the population in the area you're trying to control.
That was University of Manitoba biology professor Steve Wire talking about the mosquitoes, which if you were out this weekend in Manitoba, are also already out.
On the topics that matter, your voice should be heard.
It looks like this is maybe a one-day blip when farmers across the province need hot and dry.
Radio Noon is where you can voice your take.
In general, it's harder to find a job even if you're educated.
From 12:15 to 1 p.m., Radio Noon opens the phone lines on one important topic.
When I was 5 or 6, my parents gave me seeds and helped me plant them. That was probably close to 70 years ago. And here I am still gardening.
It just brings everyone together. Radio Noon's call-in segment, 204-780-0893. We want to hear from you weekdays on CBC.
Today's Radio Noon call-in is about the country's food bank report card that just came out at 5 this morning. We're going to look at how Manitoba fared after 8 o'clock. Harvest Manitoba will join us to look at the factors and the policy suggestions for Manitoba moving forward. And then you can call in about the results. That's on Radio Noon today. It is right now 7:45 a.m. I'm Marcy Marcusa. You're on CBC 89.3. And an update in traffic, as Corey mentioned, Israeli is now fully opened. It had been closed partially due to a working fire earlier this morning, but now everything is moving through that area. So if you have anything else to pass on anywhere else in the city or the province, you can call the commuter line at 788-3093. Well, let's revisit some of the details of a story that's in the news this morning and build on them. A 94-year-old Manitoba woman, as you may have heard Heather reporting, is being told that another application for medical assistance in dying or MAID will be nearly impossible. Marion Penner was first denied MAID in January. She now says Shared Health can't find a specialist physician to sign off on her second application. Last month, she was moved from a hospital in Steinbach to a facility in Vida. That's about 55 kilometers away from where Marion has lived her life. Marion says many of her friends and family don't drive, and now she has decided to stop taking her medication. She spoke with CBC's Christopher Garrow, who is our Steinbach reporter, about why.
Suddenly I found out that I was moving to a totally different facility, one I was totally unfamiliar with, and it all felt very strange, like I was just a piece in a game. Let's put you here, no, we'll put you there. I just wondered what's the point of prolonging all this when there may be other people who need the care that I'm getting and they're short-staffed and what have you. Maybe this made more sense rather than working really hard at prolonging a life in the 90s. Just let nature do its thing, see what happens. And we have discussed this as a family. We're all in agreement on it.
Marion is now on an 18-month list for palliative care. Her conditions are chronic rather than imminent. That means that 2 doctors or nurse practitioners are required to seek input from heart and kidney specialists under what the federal law calls Track 2 of MAID. We have Daphne Gilbert here with some reaction and explanation to the story. She's in Ottawa. She's the new chair of Dying with Dignity Canada. Good morning.
Good morning.
So I guess first your reaction to hearing about Marion's case.
Well, it's so sad on many levels, and especially that she's had to move away from her family and her community. But in terms of what she's facing and the reality around Track 2 MAID across Canada, I'm not shocked that she's finding it difficult to access.
What's the difference between Track 1 and Track 2 then?
Track 1 MAID is the original MAID, which was first legalized after a Supreme Court of Canada decision. And that is a pathway to MAID for people whose death is reasonably foreseeable, where their natural death is reasonably foreseeable. We don't have a time limit around what reasonable foreseeability looks like, but it's where you're on a trajectory towards a definite death. Track 2 MAID does not have that criteria. It is open to people who have chronic illnesses or diseases, but the other criteria for MAID are still in place, which is that you have a diagnosed condition and that you are in a state of irreversible decline in capability, and most especially that you are suffering intolerably.
Marion, as you heard, was told by Shared Health here they can't find a specialist physician to sign off on her second application for Track 2 MAID then. Why would that be an issue?
Well, so first of all, the criminal code does require in Track 2 that a person with a specialty in whatever disease or illness you have is consulted. They don't necessarily have to sign off on the application, but they do have to be consulted. And the reason it's difficult, that criteria, is because there are very few MAID providers who are willing to do Track 2 MAID. It is a problem across the country. Here in Ottawa, there is no Track 2 MAID available, even though we're, a big urban center, and that is true in many jurisdictions across Canada. It's a very complicated form of MAID. The paperwork is arduous. You have to follow the patient for several months. It typically involves multiple consultations, and we don't pay the doctors enough for them to be willing to take it on, first of all, and then secondly, as many of your listeners will know, in the last few months, the conversation around MAID has been quite fraught in this country. There's been a lot of misinformation that has been spread, and a lot of conversation that is, tinged with some toxicity around, especially Track 2 MAID, and that has made many practitioners not want to get involved for fear of reprisals from their peers or from the community that they live in.
Given that this isn't just in Manitoba challenge Track 2, I want to stay talking about that. What is your thought about the fact that they even offer it to people in Canada, if, as you're saying, it's very difficult to get approved on Track 2? I'm just thinking about Marion, who, you would go through the process of deciding if you want to do this. You would go through with your family. You would decide that you understand something's available to you, and then to hear that really actually it's available but really not commonly approved. I wonder whether or not we're ahead of ourselves and Track 2 shouldn't be offered in Canada if we don't have the people to help with it.
Well, I think those are two different questions, right? So, Die with Dignity Canada is very supportive of individual choice at end of life. And as a law professor, I am supportive of giving people opportunities to exercise their autonomy and their own decision-making around fundamental life issues, especially end-of-life issues. And Track 2 MAID responds to the very real suffering of people who might not have an imminent pathway to death, but who have lived for years with conditions and get to the point where they have declined in their capability. They're not able to live the life they want to live. They're not able to take care of themselves the way they would like to. And they're suffering. They're suffering intolerably. That's baked into the definition of MAID. So
I wonder if I can interject how many people we would need to make it possible. Because if we look at the system, Manitoba has 20 MAID assessors and providers. That is the fewest of any province outside Prince Edward Island. And 3 work outside of Winnipeg. So what's your reaction to that number, and what would the system have to look like in terms of people to have Track 2 be more readily accessible?
Well, so, we always say that we can't, force anyone to provide MAID or assess for MAID, right? Law can open the doors. That's what I can do, is open the doors and make things legal. And we do need providers to step in through those doors. And, I think a couple of things that we could do would be to, make sure that they're adequately compensated for the work and for the hours that they're putting in. And we should be training our future medical professionals and nurse practitioners on MAID and making it a natural part of a practice that faces end of life decisions. And then also, we need to be careful in this country about how we talk about MAID so that providers don't feel like they're doing something wrong. And, MAID is overwhelmingly supported by Canadians, and Track 2 MAID is overwhelmingly supported by Canadians. Polls consistently show that Canadians want access to MAID for people who are eligible. And so, what we need to do is dial down some of the rhetoric and the misinformation that is making it more complicated for practitioners to feel comfortable doing it.
What's the misinformation and rhetoric you're talking about?
That there are no safeguards, that you can just walk into an office and say, I want MAID and get MAID. The safeguards are rigorous. The procedures that have to be followed are comprehensive. These are people who make thoughtful decisions. When they ask for MAID, they're usually in consultation with their family. This is something they've thought about for a long time, and yet there's this perception and there's these anecdotal stories about people who shouldn't have got MAID, and they're used to sort of condemn the entire practice.
Marianne obviously has stopped taking her medication, as we've reported. What are your thoughts when you hear that? And have you heard that before in other patients in this country? How common is that?
I wouldn't say it's common, but I'm not shocked to hear it. And, there's several ways that people can hasten their death when they're turned down for MAID. And it's really sad because none of those ways are easy, and they all involve, adding to your suffering. It's unfortunate when it's because of a lack of providers and assessors. So, I really feel for her and her family because, that's not an easy decision to make, and it definitely will add to the suffering that she's facing.
And just last in March, CBC reported Manitobans are more likely to be denied MAID eligibility than anywhere else in Canada. I understand it doesn't surprise you. Why not?
Well, there are regions across the country that take more conservative approaches to MAID, and really MAID providers live in their communities, right? So they're embroiled in the politics of their community. And so when a MAID feels like something that is controversial, you're going to have fewer people be prepared to be involved in it. And it seems that in Manitoba, MAID is seen as more controversial than it is in some other areas in the country. And so that trickles down to how physicians and nurse practitioners feel about being involved.
Daphne Gilbert, thank you very much for responding to the story today. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
That's Daphne Gilbert, chair of Dying with Dignity Canada. In a statement from Shared Health, it said, quote, one of the safeguards is expert consultation, and if neither of the two MAID assessors possess specific expertise in the condition causing the patient suffering, they must consult with a medical doctor or nurse practitioner who specializes in the area. In most cases, it would be the specialist following the patient for that condition. Expertise input must occur during the MAID assessment process. The expert consultation is not considered a MAID assessment. End quote. And so just reiterating some of what we understood in this case. If you want to read more about this Manitoba woman, please go to the reporting from Christopher Garrow, our Steinbach reporter, at cbc.ca/Manitoba. Still ahead on the show this morning after 8 o'clock, Manitoba gets a C- in the latest food bank's report. Just came out this morning. We'll find out why. We'll look at some of the recommendations from the report, and we'll talk to Harvest Manitoba about it. Also, did you get hot over the weekend, especially if you lived in Westwood? Manitoba Hydro was asking people in that Winnipeg neighborhood to reduce their use of electricity, including their use of AC. That changed this morning at 6 o'clock, back to normal usage, but we'll find out more about the project and what exactly happened. It's pretty uncommon to be asked in a city neighborhood to reduce your electricity use. So we'll talk to Hydro after 8, hear what they had to say. Right now, Heather Wells is in with news headlines. Good morning.
Good morning. At least 12 people have lost their lives so far this year in fires in Winnipeg. Fire Paramedic Service Deputy Chief Scott Wilkinson says criminal activity is behind some of the fires, but he says in many cases substance abuse or poverty increase the likelihood of injuries or death, and he says those issues need to be addressed. Manitoba's ramping up efforts to control measles by connecting with people in the hardest hit areas. The province is phoning around around inviting people in Southern Health Region to a town hall Wednesday. It'll be a telephone town hall. The province also launching a billboard campaign with the message, measles is on the rise in Manitoba. You can help stop it. We'll hear more in our next local news coming up at 8:30.
All right, thanks very much.
Thank you.
Well, let's get into the forecast. 17 degrees in Winnipeg right now, and we do have a heat warning, yellow level for the Pond, Norway House, Lynn Lake, Thompson, and Flin Flon, where you're looking at highs around 30 today. Winnipeg looking for 28, mix of sun and cloud, 30% chance we're going to see some showers this afternoon and a risk of a storm. In traffic, we don't have anything new to report beyond the latest update that Disraeli has reopened after a challenge earlier this morning. Should be fine going through there now. 788-3093 if you want to reach Corey with anything else that's going on your morning commute. Stay with us. More local programming after 8 o'clock. But first, at the top of the clock, World Report.
On cue. Please welcome to the stage, Vincenzo Alapaluzzi.
Have you heard comedians talk about how this current political moment we're in is bad for comedy? The Irish comedian Vittorio Angelone is here, and he wants to challenge that whole premise. He'll tell you whether or not he thinks comedians should even use their platforms to discuss major world events.
Q with Tom Power. This morning at 10:30 in Newfoundland. And on CBC Listen, or wherever you get your podcasts. It's June 1st, so the deadline for the Canada-US-Mexico Agreement CUSMA review is exactly a month away. What is the future of Canada's trade relationship with the U.S.? And how should Canada approach negotiations as the deadline looms? On The Current, with guest host Mark Kelly in half an hour.
This is World Report. Good morning, I'm Martina Fitzgerald. President Donald Trump says Iran wants to make a deal and it will be good for the USA. Trump taking to social media this morning to post his optimism on how negotiations are unfolding between the two countries. But several strikes over the weekend tell a different story. The CBC's Chris Reyes joins me now from Washington. Chris, how are these recent strikes affecting peace negotiations?
Well, Martina, President Trump seemed to be saying to his critics and the world that he will not be rushed on these negotiations. And he pointed a finger at Democrats and what he called unpatriotic Republicans, blaming them for getting in the way. He then said, sit back and relax. It will all work out well in the end. It always does. Now, this statement comes as the weekend passed with no call from the president on whether there will be an extension of the ceasefire between the U.S. and Iran and the exchanging of fire between the two countries. U.S. Central Command shared more detail late last night, calling the strikes on Iranian sites self-defense, claiming that Iranian drones were threatening ships and other U.S. assets. And Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard also says this morning that it targeted an airbase used by the U.S. as a response.
Chris, what are we hearing from Tehran?
Well, first, Tehran is calling those U.S. strikes over the weekend a violation of the ceasefire, countering that U.S. narrative that it was self-defense. Iran's foreign minister is describing the conditions of negotiations with the U.S. as one full of mistrust and severe suspicion. He also insisted that a ceasefire in Lebanon is an essential condition for any deal that would end the war. He also seemed to be saying that these negotiations have not advanced very far. The minister said details over nuclear matters have yet to be discussed. The tone on both sides clearly very tense.
The CBC's Chris Reyes in Washington. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Israel's military is stepping up attacks on southern Lebanon. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says the IDF has been instructed to strike what he calls terrorist targets in Beirut. Israel considers several southern regions in Lebanon's capital to be Hezbollah strongholds. Netanyahu says the strikes are in response to attacks on Israeli civilians. He says Israel will continue to expand its ground operations in southern Lebanon as it moves to eliminate Hezbollah infrastructure. Both Israel and Hezbollah accuse each other of violating a U.S.-brokered ceasefire. Alberta is working to finalize plans for a new oil pipeline to the BC coast. CBC News has obtained documents with details about the project, and they give a glimpse into the potential routes the province has in mind. Here is business reporter Kyle Bax with the exclusive details.
There's a lot of mountains in the way. It's a difficult country.
The Alberta government is considering 4 different routes for a new oil pipeline to the west coast. Documents obtained by CBC News show 3 of the routes on a map through northern BC. For Grant Sprague, a former deputy energy minister in Alberta, he sees many challenges, from tough terrain to protected areas and major waterways home to salmon.
I see, as I look at those maps, either you're dealing with the Nass River or you're dealing with the Skeena, both really important rivers.
The documents are labeled confidential and were used by the Alberta government as part of consultation with some leaders in northern BC this spring. One of the routes is nearly identical to Enbridge's former Northern Gateway pipeline proposal. The northern routes seem to go through communities that are more supportive of a pipeline, says Heather Exner-Perot. She's a special advisor on energy to the Business Council of Canada.
This is a strategic route for political reasons, not for economic reasons. So it will be a bit more expensive, but they must expect that will save them time and money on the back end.
The Alberta government is also exploring the idea of a 4th route through southern BC. Premier Danielle Smith wants to break ground next year, which Sprague says will be difficult.
I'd say that it's wildly ambitious.
The Alberta government plans to submit the proposal to the Federal Major Projects Office this month. Kyle Bax, CBC News, Calgary.
This morning, we're waiting for a possible CUSMA update from the Trump administration. U.S. Trade Representative Jameson Greer has said he planned to update Congress on talks today. He signaled his intention in April, adding matters with Canada remained unresolved, but
the Canadians, we have some issues with them that haven't been resolved yet. I don't want to get ahead of myself because I have to tell Congress on June 1st what we're going to do. And then a month later, I tell the Canadians and Mexicans what I told Congress a month before. So I think that we aren't probably going to be able to resolve all issues by July 1st, but I think we are on track to resolve many of them and to move as quickly as we can.
Greer's office, though, did not respond to CBC News when asked if that update was happening. Dominic LeBlanc, the minister responsible for Canada-U.S. trade, would only say that Canada is preparing for a joint review of the trade deal. Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre wants a debate on affordability today in the House of Commons. He says it would give the Prime Minister a chance to inform Canadians about his economic plans. New data from Stats Canada shows the economy has contracted for 2 consecutive annualized quarters, signaling a technical recession. The Liberal government has already dismissed Poilievre's request. An admirer of Donald Trump is making gains in Colombia's presidential election. Abelardo de la Espriella won the first round and surprised analysts with 43% of votes. Next, he'll face a left-wing candidate in a runoff later this month. Manuel Rueda has more on the contentious election.
Abelardo de la Espriella celebrated his victory, calling on Colombians to defeat what he terms communism. One of his targets is the country's president, Gustavo Petro, who is term limited and not running in the election. You and your allies will not steal our democracy, he says. De la Espriella entered politics only a year ago when he launched his presidential campaign. The populist candidate has pledged to end the government's peace negotiations with Colombia's rebel groups and build 10 mega prisons to house criminals who surrender to authorities. His challenger in the runoff is Iván Cepeda, a longtime senator aligned with President Petro's left-wing movement. Cepeda has promised to expand social programs, including subsidies for farmers. Speaking to supporters after the vote, Cepeda urged Colombians who backed other candidates to vote for him in the second round. Join us and be on the right side of history, he said. The political climate in Colombia has become increasingly polarized, says political analyst Sergio Guzman.
The candidates both are dug in to their base and their narrative.
About 15% of the voters supported neither of the top 2 contenders. Their votes could be crucial in the final round. Manuel Rueda for CBC News, Bogotá.
Nearly 300 workers with Canadian Pacific Kansas City are off the job. They maintain railway signaling and communication systems from Vancouver to Montreal. The union says the railway has failed to engage on issues affecting retention, compensation, and work-life balance. CPKC says it has offered wage and benefit increases consistent with its other collective agreements and says it has contingency plans to keep operations running. One of the world's most popular streaming series is still celebrating a big weekend. The steamy Heated Rivalry dominated the Canadian Screen Awards, capping off a monumental year for homegrown content. Senior entertainment reporter Griffin Yeager has details.
And the Canadian Screen Award goes to Hudson Williams, Heated Rivalry.
It was Heated Rivalry's night at the Canadian Screen Awards, winning 16 trophies and breaking a CSA record, capping off a huge run for the Canadian hockey love story turned worldwide hit. The show's star Hudson Williams took home Best Lead Performer in a Drama and shouted out to his American co-star.
To the honorary Canadian Connor Story, I share this award with you. Thank you.
North of North went in as the top nominee and left with 9 awards, including Best Comedy Series and Best Lead Performer for Anna Lam.
Say it 1,000 times again, being part of this project is like the greatest joy of my career.
The show, hosted by Andrew Fung, had some other standout moments too. Eugene Levy surprised fans with a heartfelt tribute to the late Catherine O'Hara.
It was who she was as a person that endeared her to millions.
Nirvana, the band, the show, the movie took home Best Picture. Its producers were shocked and excited.
It's been crazy to see the support we've gotten within this country, worldwide.
And Mike Myers was honored with the Academy Icon Award.
Canada, I don't know what to say, dude. I'd literally be nothing without you.
A night of Canadian moments and a celebration of their global appeal. Griffin Yeager, CBC News, Toronto.
That is the latest national and international news from World Report. I'm Martina Fitzgerald. This is CBC News.
Good Monday morning, Manitoba. I'm Marcy Marcusa. We're live in downtown Winnipeg on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app and YouTube. Sunshine downtown, hot up north, and a possible shower in Winnipeg this afternoon. This half hour in the show, we're going to look at a couple of things that developed very early this morning. First of all, at 6 o'clock, they told people in the Westwood neighborhood in Winnipeg, Manitoba Hydro did, that is, that you could use your normal rate of electricity after having to being asked to consume power over the weekend. We're going to talk to Hydro this half hour about what happened. It is quite uncommon to be asking people in a city neighborhood to slow down their electricity use. So stay tuned. Also this half hour on the program, we're going to be hearing about a report that came out at 6 o'clock this morning. That is the Food Banks Canada report. Looking at the issues across this country and also looking province by province. Manitoba gets a C- in terms of its response to food insecurity. We'll talk to Harvest Manitoba about what exactly the site findings in this report mean now and also in the future. So stay tuned. It's all coming up. Right now, let's go to Heather Welsh. She has other developments in news. Good morning.
Good morning. A national pro-choice group has taken up the cause of a 94-year-old Steinbach area woman who wants to die. Marion Penner is bedridden, suffering several ailments, and was denied medical assistance in dying, or MAID, earlier this year. Now, without further assistance, she is refusing to take her medications in order to hasten her death. We're going to hear from Abortion Rights Coalition of Canada coming up. And the Union for Winnipeg Firefighters says inaction from the city is driving up the number of fatal fires. At least 12 people have died in blazes in this city so far this year. Your next local news coming up at 8:30.
All right, thanks, Heather.
Thank you.
Corey Funk's here with weather and traffic.
19 right now in Winnipeg at the Forks. We are heading for a high today of 28, about a 30% chance of showers this afternoon. It might even become a thunderstorm later on. That's the case for much of southern Manitoba today. You can expect some showers potentially that could turn into thunderstorms as well. Up north right now, there is a yellow heat warning in effect for much of north and central Manitoba. We're talking about Thompson, Lynn Lake, Norway, the Pas, Norway House, the Pas, and Flin Flon. Highs low 30s or so today, so very, very hot. No rain in your forecast as well today. But down south, a little bit more mild. The high today in Winnipeg is going to be 28, so still quite hot, but not quite as hot as it has been before. Turning to your commute right now, not a lot going on out there. The only thing I heard on the commuter line was from Marianne, who called to say westbound Portage. Just before you hit Deer Lodge, there was some geese crossing the road, so it might throw off your commute a little bit. So if you see anything else, though, give me a call on the CBC commuter line. That number, 204-788-3093.
Well, Food Banks Canada, as I mentioned, put out their annual report early this morning at 5 o'clock. And one of the headlines is, quote, working hard, hardly eating, end quote. 1 in 5 food bank clients in this country is employed, but still going hungry. The annual report looks at all of Canada. It breaks down how the provinces are dealing with historic levels of food insecurity. And while places like Manitoba have improved their grade from a D- in 2024 to a C- now, the organization still says that Canada overall is treading water in the fight for food for all. Megan Urbis is a vice president over at Harvest Manitoba. She's here now to talk about the report card for 2026 that came out today. Good morning. How does it sit with you when you hear, or resonate, I should say, with you when you hear that 1 in 5 food bank clients in Canada is employed but still, needing a food bank and going hungry? Does that resonate when you think about your clients at Harvest?
Yeah, it certainly does. I think over the past few years, as we've done some of our own reporting through Harvest Voices, we've seen this as a trend where we've seen more folks that are accessing our services are employed. And that's sort of new to us.
Some of the recommendations from the report specific for Manitoba say increase in index employment and income assistance rates, develop a comprehensive provincial food security strategy, and enhance the rent assist program. I know this is a big question, but when you hear those 3 sort of areas, how does that sit with you when you think about where we're at and where we can go?
Yeah, so we worked pretty closely with Food Banks Canada on this report. So they use polling data, and then we use data through our Harvest Voices survey to sort of allow us to find out what needs to be advocated for on behalf of the folks that access our services. We ask them directly. And these priorities really ring true with them. I would say that one of the biggest ones that the community is advocating for is to increase employment income assistance rates rather. We see the majority of folks that are accessing our services are accessing this program. And then again, really just in terms of the food security strategy, it's one of those things where often like-minded groups like ourselves and other coalitions work around these areas, but are often somewhat siloed. So I think this really opens up an opportunity for there to be dialogue across a number of different sectors and what that might mean for food security in our province. And then, of course, rent assist. So I think one of those things, it's kind of interesting because not every province across the country has a rent assist program. It's a portable budget, or a portable mechanism that folks can access. They don't have to be on employment and income assistance. It can be a lower income individual that can access this. And this is just an opportunity for it to be strengthened. And so people have more access to it.
We did fare in Manitoba, at least according to this Food Banks Canada report, a little bit better than 2024 in terms of the grade I mentioned. Why do you think that has happened? What things have helped you make that slight improvement here?
Well, first and foremost, we've had an incredible dialogue with the government. We've spent a great deal of time having meetings, talking about different things that Harvest is doing right now in terms of our transformation center and other initiatives that we have moving forward. But really, there's been a lot of things that have been implemented that we've advocated for a long time, like universal school food programs, daycare for the lowest individuals and families. And then, of course, just recently, the PST on grocery items, which we advocated for our during the pre-budget consultations. And so seeing those types of incremental successes happen, makes us be optimistic to see what transformation can happen in the future. So that dialogue has been really, really crucial in terms of letting our current government know what's going on in the lives of folks that are accessing food banks.
Out of this report, it talks about some national targets as well. And one of the big headlines is they're talking about it's time to make, this is a quote from the report, generational investment and comprehensive reforms to rebuild and modernize EI for modern workers. What does modernized EI look like in Manitoba if we are to follow the federal recommendation out of this report?
Yeah, I think so. It's not necessarily a top priority in terms of what I would say our food bank clients are suggesting, but it certainly rings true in the sense that there's a number, again, as you mentioned earlier, of folks that are employed accessing our services. And really what I think a modernized EIA system for Manitoba could be is just that the reality in terms of what workforce looks like here is that there's a lot of folks that are working, precarious employment, seasonal employment, and really having an opportunity for folks that, maybe have gaps in terms of accessing services post-employment may be able to access these services through a reformed EI system. Where right now, if you're a part of the gig economy and so forth, and the areas in which I mentioned earlier, you wouldn't have access to our current EI program, rather.
Yeah, you're left out of it.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And you might be, having to rely on EIA, which again, there's a lot of pressure in that system as it is.
Just last on this, I know that you've also had a look at the report, just came out today. Anything to add that I haven't asked about that you think is important to highlight?
No, I would just say that, like, in terms of some of the things that you've heard me talk about and you've talked about in the past, that if, there's a lot of political will within yourself. So if you have the ear of your local MLA, MP, or city councillor to talk about these issues, that's important. And, if you're ever interested in finding out what we do, you're welcome to come down and do some volunteering, and find out a little bit more about food security measures we're taking.
All right. Thanks for being with us live this morning, Megan. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Live on Zoom with us, that's Megan Urbas, the Vice President of Advocacy and Stakeholder Relations over at Harvest Manitoba, talking about the food bank's report that was released this morning at 5 o'clock. This will be the topic of the Radio Noon call-in. So they have special guests that are going to join and talk all about food insecurity in Canada. And of course, it's the Manitoba call-in, so here in Manitoba, and expand the conversation we were able to have here in the morning show with also additional new guests. So if you want to join that conversation, if you have used a food bank, especially if you have used one in the past, and then what is it that helped you not use a food bank? What is it that led you to use a food bank? All those stories. If you volunteered, even if you want to weigh in, the Radio Noon call-in has the lines open for you. So it's between 12:15 and 1 o'clock on Radio Noon with host Marjorie Dalhouse here on CBC 89.3 FM.
The puck may have dropped on the playoffs, but the news doesn't stop for hockey. I'm Brittany Greenslade, host of CBC Winnipeg News at 6. To get your local news, stream CBC Winnipeg News at 6, 24/7 on CBC Gem, the CBC News app, and selected streaming platforms. CBC Winnipeg News at 6, your local news on your favorite streaming device.
It is 8:21 right now, and as of 6 o'clock this morning, as I mentioned here, 1,400 customers in Winnipeg's Westwood neighborhood were told by Manitoba Hydro to resume normal electricity use. They were asked on a hot weekend to reduce consumption, including their air conditioning. This is CBC's Gavin Axelrod. I should mention we're going to hear from Hydro in a moment, but first let's hear from some people about how that went. Gavin Axelrod was out over this weekend speaking to some Westwood residents.
Amanda McLaren. Ridiculous, especially during a heat wave, especially to reduce, and they're not going to reduce the rates that we're paying. So what's the point in reducing the amount of electricity that we're using?
How did you find out about?
I saw it on Facebook, on the city or on the St. James page, and all the other people complaining about it.
So for you, what have you done differently today?
Nothing. I haven't reduced it because my rates aren't going down. So
Ken Gelati. If they had sent us something, we didn't get it. If we were expected to just go looking for it. Is this an email or is this a text?
No, this is on Twitter actually.
Oh, on Twitter?
It's
on
social media. I think it was Facebook, Twitter.
Yeah, so you know what, you have to be on the right platform. You got to be, and there's so many platforms, there's so many ways. And
my name's Jennifer Gaiman. I mean, if they're asking for us to try to lessen it, it must be for a reason.
How much have you been following, I guess, what they're asking you?
Yeah, we turned our air conditioning up a little bit. We don't keep it very low anyways because environmentally it's not that safe. And we hung our towels out to dry today instead of putting them in the dryer.
So that was CBC's Gavin Axelrod speaking with some residents from Westwood about this weekend's request from Manitoba Hydro. As we mentioned, as of 6 o'clock this morning, residents in Winnipeg's Westwood neighborhood have been told to resume normal electricity use. 1,400 customers were affected over the weekend and asked to reduce consumption and also asked to change thermostats to about 24 degrees Celsius to reduce consumption as well, and wait to run dishwashers and laundry machines until after 10. Hydro says it was due to upgrades being done at the Cavalier substation. Scott Powell's with us this morning. He's Director of Corporate Communications and Marketing at Manitoba Hydro. Good morning.
Morning, Marcy.
How unusual is it to ask folks in the city to reduce consumption like this?
Well, it's certainly very, very rare, but not unprecedented. I think the last time I can remember having to issue something like this to customers in a specific area was it 2010 or 2011. So it's been a long time since we've had to do that.
You heard some of the reaction from people over the weekend. What did you hear directly from folks?
Surprisingly, not too much. Obviously, some people were inconvenienced and let us know about that. And we can understand that. I mean, obviously, it was a very unseasonably hot weekend. And having to get this notice come sort of Friday evening, we know that's an inconvenience at the least there for customers. But it's just an unfortunate confluence of where we were in the work we're doing on the substation, the unseasonably hot weather, which created higher demand than we would normally see at this time of year, that resulted in us having to ask people to moderate their consumption a little bit and moderate their usage in order to avoid the potential of an outage that could have been lengthy and harder to restore.
If it had been a cooler day, would you have had to ask for reduced consumption, or would the work have gone ahead?
No, the work would have continued and there would have been no need for reduced consumption at all. The challenge is just where we were in the work process, where we are in the work process, is at a stage where it's difficult for us, if in some cases impossible, to bring additional electricity into that substation from other feeder lines and other substations in the area. We typically always plan this work to happen in the shoulder season.
Yep.
Shoulder seasons are when we see the lowest consumption, no heating load, no air conditioning. This work actually started back last fall, and the first phase is expected to be completed here in mid-June. Before the real summer heat sets in. And then we have another phase that'll be starting after that. But like I say, it's just an unfortunate confluence of events where we had this unseasonably hot weather move in. And we were seeing higher loads on that substation with increased air conditioning use. And it just seemed prudent to avoid an outage.
So what will happen in the weeks ahead then? Because you said this first phase should be done mid-June, and we have had more warmer than seasonal days. And so if we have another stretch of 30-degree days, it looks like there will be. You're trying to do the work. By way of going forward, should residents in that Westwood neighborhood expect that this could likely happen again then and ask to reduce consumption?
We're not anticipating that, Marcy, at this time, because the phase of work we will be at will be different. We'll be able to bring some of that electricity in. Obviously, if there's something, we have an issue or equipment failure, it's always a possibility anywhere in the province. But we're not anticipating any further issues. That's why we told customers they can resume their normal usage early this morning.
What have you learned about communication? Obviously, we heard some feedback about Facebook and Twitter not working for people. What have you learned about communicating with people more effectively, maybe in the future, or maybe on more platforms?
Well, certainly we're always looking at how having to improve. Unfortunately, the timing of this was unfortunate, where we had a very late notification on a Friday. But certainly, where possible, we try to reach out to people through social media using our media partners such as CBC and other mainstream media. And we thank customers for their cooperation. We, in fact, did see a reduction in demand of around 10% on certain feeders. So we want to thank our customers for that and thank our friends in the media for helping us get the message out very last minute.
What should people expect, though? I mean, ideally, would it be a thing in the mailbox? Would it be 3 days before?
Well, Marcy, there'd be no time to send anything in a mailbox when you have to pull this off at late on a Friday.
Yeah, for sure. But going forward, what's the standard if you don't have something that's last minute? Would it be a couple days notice and such, or?
Well, that would be speculative, and it would depend on the nature of the issue that would arise. I mean, we've used various methods for notification, say with vegetation management work.
Mm-hmm.
We leave door knockers when we're coming into a neighborhood. People who have signed up for our app often get notifications if we get enough advance notice to get it into the application. Some people get text messages, but we typically rely a lot on social media and also through our mainstream media partners.
Okay. And just to be clear, this has nothing to do with reduced capacity overall in our Manitoba hydro grid. This is about that substation.
I want to be clear, Marcy, there's no reduced capacity in the Manitoba hydro grid. This was a challenge getting electricity into one specific neighborhood over a weekend.
All right, Scott Powell, thank you for your time this morning.
Great, Marcy. Thanks very much. Have a great day now.
Scott Powell, Director of Corporate Communications at Manitoba Hydro, a service in Westwood. You can use all of your electricity as of 6 a.m. this morning after a weekend of reduction, I should say. There was not a surge outage. You were just asked to reduce. Also, want to mention that Scott Powell was also sharing with us that phase 2 is expected to be done by the middle of June. And as you heard him say, he's not expecting any further accommodations from customers in the Westwood area because of it. And then they'll resume with their project this fall. So that is the trajectory of what's coming next. Let's thank the people that worked on the show today, shall we? So big thanks to those who worked in information radio, writing scripts, researching guests, and in some cases, shooting our stories for YouTube. So our associate producers that had to work in the show today, Sophia Peralta-Barone, as well as Emily Enns. Our reporter in unit, Jim Agapito, and videographer Travis Golby. Also from our news department, Heather Wells, Joni Nicolo, Megan Ketchison, and Darren Bernhardt out there for our web. Also in the early morning crew in our Studio 15 team, we have Corey Funk and Abby Adeyemi and Darren Marash, and our producers. So the producer yesterday on scene was Nellie Gonzalez, on site I should say, who is back and producing all the programs here in our current affairs system. The senior in current affairs unit rather, and the senior producer of audio for CBC Manitoba is Leif Larson. So thanks to everybody who worked so hard on this morning's morning show. We're wrapping with a pretty good day in traffic so far to start our Monday. It's just one of those days where no matter what you're doing, you could be sweating if you're actively commuting, and if you're driving, you're going to have the shades on or the visors down. Hopefully, it won't be troublesome for you out there. 788-3093. We are near the end of the show here, but of course you can still get in late calls. If they're important to pass along, we'll do so. As we watch the heat that will herald in another week. By midweek, actually, we should be changing, though, to a little bit more seasonal conditions, I should say, in Manitoba, with a little bit of rain as well, which we need. Let's get to CBC Manitoba's newscast at 8:30.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 8:30, it's 19 degrees right now. Mix of sun and clouds today as we start the month of June. Still feeling hot, but no heat warning in southern Manitoba. A high in Winnipeg of 28. A national pro-choice group has taken up the cause of a 94-year-old Manitoba woman who wants to die. Marion Penner is from Steinbach. She is bedridden, suffering several ailments. Penner was denied medical assistance in dying, or MAID, earlier this year. Now she is refusing to take her medications in order to hasten her death. Joyce Arthur at Abortion Rights Coalition of Canada says Manitoba's MAID laws restrict patients' right to care.
Patients like Marion are kind of trapped by this law. Not only can doctors refuse to help, they don't have to give her any assistance at all, no information, no referral, basically just abandoning the patient, patients like Marion, to be on their own, trying to figure things out on their own.
The group wants to see better access for MAID services in Manitoba. CBC reported in March Manitoba has the highest MAID denial rates in Canada. The Union for Winnipeg Firefighters says inaction from the city is driving the number of fatal fires. At least 12 people have died in blazes so far this year. Adam Smithson at the United Firefighters of Winnipeg says the critical branch for fire prevention is understaffed, and crews on the ground are also stretched thin, delaying response times to fires. Smithson says the number of deaths weighs on the union.
These aren't just statistics on the page, right? Their lives lost in fire, their families awakened by unimaginable loss, and neighborhoods forced to grieve tragedies that could and should have been prevented.
The mayor's office says the firefighter service has seen one of the largest staffing increases of any city department. That's after 44 full-time positions were added over the past 2 years. Manitoba is ramping up its efforts to control measles by connecting with people in the hardest hit areas. The province is inviting people in the Southern Health Region to a telephone town hall Wednesday. They can talk with health officials, and get information on vaccines. Health Minister Uzoma Asseguera says it's about direct outreach.
Getting people the information they need, allowing people to ask questions. Maybe some of those questions that they've been sitting with for a while, but just haven't known where to pose those questions and get information they can trust.
The province also launched a billboard campaign with the message, "Measles is on the rise in Manitoba. You can help stop it." Manitoba has recorded more than 600 measles cases in 2026 so far. That is about 2/3 of all the cases reported in Canada. Nearly 300 railway signal workers with Canadian Pacific Kansas City are off the job. Their 72-hour strike notice expired Sunday morning without a deal. The workers maintain railway signaling and communication systems from Vancouver to Montreal. At issue, according to the union, is retention, compensation, and work-life balance. CPKC says it has offered wage and benefit increases consistent with its other collective agreements. The railway says it has contingency plans to keep operations running. Well, using beads and threads to raise money. More than 100 Winnipeggers took part in a beadathon yesterday to help St. Boniface Museum. Host Lisa Hetrick says the celebration of Métis culture will help preserve an important piece of Manitoba's history.
The museum itself originally was the first church, the first hospital, the first orphanage, the first of everything. And basically the community grew around the museum. And now I'm asking the community to come together and support the museum. It is more than just an old building holding old things.
The museum is closed to the public because of renovations. Money raised through the beadathon goes to needed repairs. Well, thousands took to downtown Winnipeg over the weekend to eat and take in performances from different Asian cultures. The Taste of Asia Festival in Memorial Park. Kits Gardos with Jeepney Vibes was among dozens of vendors and was cooking up Filipino street food.
Feels like we're adding into the culture of Winnipeg itself. As of the moment, a lot of the food here is similar, but every new business adds a little something different.
This was the Taste of Asia Festival's 4th year in Winnipeg. You can find more news updated throughout the day. Just head to CBC Manitoba. CBC.ca/Manitoba is where you should head.
All right, thanks, Heather Wallace.
Thank you.
Corey Funk, wrap it all up here for us.
19 degrees now at the Forks, heading for a high today of 28 in Winnipeg. Throughout southern Manitoba, there's a chance of rain that might even become thunderstorms today throughout the afternoon. Keep in mind, if you're up north in central Manitoba, there is a yellow level heat warning in effect, highs in the low 30s with no rain in sight in the immediate forecast. As for your commute, quiet out there. Heard that there were some geese westbound portage just outside of Deer Lodge, but that was like half an hour ago. So if those geese are still there, they're either very slow or very stubborn. Not sure what the problem is there.
Some of the wildlife images and videos have been incredible right now. Up around Lac du Bonnet, there's the folks that have the, on Facebook, there's some residents like Tim Turner has specifically like a camera on the trail, and he's got a bathtub full of water there.
Okay.
And the bears come by and go in a dip, and then there was a mama deer. Someone's going to say there's a technical name for that. I know there is.
A
and I'm losing
doe?
it. Thank you.
A deer, a female deer.
I got that even. I finally got one of the jokes.
Yeah,
High
boom.
five. It was a Sound of Music joke. Anyway, she was there with her baby, and it was so cute. Yeah. So lots of that stuff's cute. But watch them in traffic for sure. All the geese and that. All right. Take care. Thanks, Corey.
You too.
You take care too for listening this morning, everybody. And thank you for joining us here on Information Radio. I'm Marcy Marcusa. This is CBC. Coming up next, Mark Kelly is guest hosting on The Current on 89.3. Stay with us.